A year later, the main character remembered her past life. She found herself in a novel she'd read on a friend's recommendation. The novella is considered to have a happy ending. The heroine of the first part defeats the villain and marries the protagonist. The villain dies in the pain she deserves. Over time, everyone forgets about her so as not to dwell on the memories. The main characters have children and live happily ever after. The woman sits in captivity, constantly repeating how much she misses the Duke. Ironically, the novel's happy ending is quite contradictory. The villain initially was the protagonist's wife, whom she loved deeply. The couple lived happily married for about 3 years, and they experienced no hardships because love conquers all. It was destined to end well. The protagonist arrives at the mansion as a servant, and the Duke falls in love with her. They begin a secret affair that blossoms into something more. The lady, shrouded in the darkness of betrayal, cannot understand how this could have happened. His lordship could not have treated his wife like that. Betrayed by her husband, the woman desperately tried to protect her love and her position as duchess. Roman favored her death because her husband didn't appreciate her efforts. The girl was imprisoned in the tower, but she was no longer alone. The fruit of their love, the story's protagonist, was beginning to form in her womb. As usual, the beauty stands by the window, sniffling. She remembers his glow every second, repeating his name over and over again. The girl's mother pines for her ex-husband all day, except when she's feeding the baby. She doesn't forget her duties as a mother. The girl tried to understand the woman, but never reached the same level as she did. There's nothing good about a man who abandons his own wife and child. The heroine is terrified that she'll have to live in this tower for the rest of her life simply because she's the daughter of a villain. It's unfortunate to be reborn in a low-grade novel. In these dark thoughts, life flashed by in the blink of an eye. As soon as the baby learned to walk, she was separated from her mother. Until her daughter's departure, the lady mourned the Duke, not her, as if ignoring everything completely. The heroine was sent to the imperial orphanage where she belonged. Life there was so difficult that over time, the heroine began to miss the tower. Everyone thought Daphne was just like her mother and tried to starve her to death. At least her mother was taking care of her daughter's nutrition, but now it's unclear what will happen. This is terribly sad for the little girl, as the uncertainty is frightening. If the lady hadn't had memories of her past life, she would have given up on this long ago. It's normal for a child to shed tears for days on end. Hurtful words and comparisons are far worse than being ignored and treated unkindly. I don't want to get used to something like that, but for now, I'll have to. The orphanage's caretaker turned out to be a true villain. He saw everything and gave tacit consent, which freed the children. No one felt guilty. By the time the girl had gotten used to her fate, a new girl came to work at the shelter, who seemed nice at first glance. Unlike the others, this beautiful lady made a good impression, as she behaved quite kindly, as if she needed something. The Virgin secretly brought her sweets and talked about how beautiful Daphne was. She treated her tenderly, as if she were her mother. At least there was someone sane in this shelter, which already brought joy and warmth to the young girl's soul. All she could do was pray that this would continue forever. The villainess's daughter cannot hope for a peaceful life. The knights brought the girl to the tower to see her mother one last time. This final meeting must take place. Daphne doesn't believe it. No one can wish her well without some kind of partial benefit. It's impossible for someone who only misses her husband to remember their child. But no matter how bad things were, the woman fed the baby when she cried, and her embrace was warm enough to make her forget her hunger and her plight. The memories will always remain, but now, when she enters the main hall, the little girl freezes. Her very thin and pale mother lies on the bed before her. The woman breathes heavily, trying to turn over, but nothing works. Until the very last moment, she cries out for her beloved. All this time, the heroine was beaten and scolded, and she endured it. When you consider that her mother never even mentioned her daughter, it hurts that much more. The Duke turned out to be a scoundrel. He forgot about his family and now lives happily ever after. The lady doesn't quite understand this. Still, the pain caused by indifference is incomparable. Smiling, the girl summons all her strength and says her name. No one had given her a name, so she gave herself one in a similar vein. The woman remains silent. The mother will silently look into eyes similar to her father's and once again yearn for the husband who abandoned her. The girl decides to show her favor. She understands that the woman dreamed of becoming her father's wife, not her mother, so she doesn't put any pressure on her. Better to get some sleep and not wait for that man. The woman opens her mouth to speak, but her eyes close and her hand goes limp, hanging in her daughter's. She won't say anything else. The night covers the girl's face with a handkerchief. Tears well up in her eyes, even though she wants to remain strong. After all, the main character is just a child. The girl tries to stop, but she's being pulled somewhere again. They will never see each other again, and even though their last encounter was painful, that doesn't mean it's any less meaningful. Still, stopping on the stairs, Daphne asks the gentleman what will happen to her mother after what happened. She really wants to know. Clearly, the hero didn't expect to hear such a question. The little girl is a 7-year-old child who doesn't yet understand what death is or what comes after it. Thinking about something for just a second, the young man suddenly says that the woman will go to hell because of all the deeds she managed to commit. Leading the girl down again, he asked her to never do anything bad and to live right. Otherwise, the heroine will end up just like the villainess in the tower. The first people to mistreat the lady were the main characters. They had an affair, secretly from their mother, the Duke's real wife. Mother treated them terribly, but she didn't deserve worse. The looks that pierced the child that day were full of malice. Surely each of them condemned the woman. She didn't want to be treated that way. One thing is certain, no one showed any sympathy. The child had just lost a loved one, but no one cared because everyone was looking out for themselves. Now Daphne's mother will go down in history as a villain, and she must prepare for the tragic end that awaits her. According to the plot, after the villain's death, the girl will be beaten to death. Her fate is already determined, and it will be extremely difficult to change. The knight interrupts his thoughts, continuing to drag the beauty out into the street. She falls to the ground, and instead of help, she simply hears whispers of condemnation from all around. For a woman, the real monsters are everyone around her. These are adults who ultimately don't even care for the child properly, simply continuing to behave inappropriately. Yulin rushed forward, asking her charge if everything was okay. She noticed the little girl sitting on the ground, so she couldn't stand by. The child fell, and no one helped her. Yulin is furious because the little girl has scraped her knees, which need immediate treatment. The girl calls her back to the shelter. If she returns, she will die, even considering that death was only mentioned in one line. It was never mentioned who beat her or how exactly. Before Daphne returns to the shelter, she needs to meet someone. She sees a man with dark hair standing in front of her, a large build and dark blue hair the color of the night sky, as well as a sharp chin hint at, or rather scream about, the person. The sparkling golden eyes that the maiden had previously seen only in the mirror glow opposite, making the heroine think. This man is the biological father of a girl who realized this too late. They look at each other. The child doesn't like the man, but he's her only lifeline. If the little girl disappears from his sight, she could die tomorrow. They tell him it's his daughter, or rather the daughter of the villainous Frayne. The hatred coursing through his veins is immediately visible in his gaze. She wants to start arguing, but it would be pretty stupid for the beauty to miss her chance. She has to survive. Daphne reaches out to her father, calling his name, but he turns away in disgust. He says this isn't his child. The woman who even hired someone to harm Ulysse couldn't pay for the services. Most likely, she offered something else. There's no point in calling herself a duke's child without knowing what blood flows in her veins. It would be best for her to remain silent. Walking further, the young man stops in front of the bier. The knight says the woman's death has been confirmed, so they'll deal with the body themselves. The brunette came one last time to witness the death. He didn't notice that the girl had once been his wife. Frayne was unhappy until her last breath. This is precisely the plot and ending reserved for the villain who loses history. Yulin brought the little girl to the gate. They returned once again to the terrible orphanage, where they continued to prevent her from living a normal life. Stepping inside, the beauty calls out to her friend, but she exhales angrily. She thought this was a wonderful opportunity to change her life. Her hopes proved futile. No matter how hard the woman tried, nothing worked, and now she blames herself and the girl for what happened. Yulin stayed close to Daphne, thinking she could live comfortably as a nanny in the ducal family. That's why she was kind to the little girl, and then a realization dawned on her. What happened is truly annoying, but no one knows what to do next. The brunette snorts right in their faces. The children standing behind them start laughing. They've heard that the villain is finally dead, and that's good news because that's what everyone's saying. The little girl restrains herself, but clenches her hands as hard as she can. She can't do anything because she's helpless. It's best to just ignore everyone around her as she usually does, but they keep stopping the beauty. They say the Duke killed the girl's mother. She turns sharply and freezes. She wants to know all the details, which have been unavailable until now. The children continue to laugh. The father kept the woman locked up and denied her normal living conditions until she eventually died. She and Mom weren't the worst, so it's extremely difficult to tolerate this. If I get angry now, there will be bad consequences. Her eyes widen sharply. The beauty belatedly realizes that, in this case, she shouldn't try to hold back. I don't want to butt in because they're just kids, but these people are asking for trouble. They intentionally say hurtful things, as if testing your mettle. Finally daring to speak, Daphne asks if her situation is worse than the other kids. It's different for them. The brunette isn't acting this way for any reason. Better watch what you say, otherwise, eventually, she'll get what she deserves. The little girl then prepares to go to her room to avoid further conflict, but Yulin stops her. She couldn't say something like that to her friends. The woman had been silent before, but now she's decided to speak out, even though it's best to do so toward others. The attack is directed at the wrong person. Daphne went to her room. She was ordered to reflect on her behavior, which she needed to correct as quickly as possible. Now the girl understands what it means to be an orphan. Her mother died a villain in the eyes of society, and the Duke doesn't consider the beauty his child at all. At first, the girl thought she wouldn't care and could endure everything. But in reality, this turned out to be a mistake. Theoretical questions are always like that. The feeling, like tears nearby, hits at the most inopportune moment. Around you, people criticizing you, children bullying you, co-workers insulting you, and a director pretending everything is fine. No one knows, but one of them will definitely beat the lady to death. She can't sit and wait with her hands folded. Lost in her thoughts, the beauty falls asleep. She hasn't noticed how evening has fallen outside, so she looks out the window. As she's about to get out of bed, the lady slows down. She hears strange sounds, as if people are climbing up to her. It's Yulin again. As the elder said, the lady is spoiling her charge too much, so it's best to impose some kind of punishment. Daphne didn't realize her mistake and didn't repent, so tomorrow she'll go with the brunette to wherever she'll be told without question. After many people have scolded the girl, everything will finally become clear. When she goes outside, the woman stacks the boxes up to prevent her from escaping. Panic sets in almost immediately. The woman is planning to take the protagonist somewhere, and she'll likely die there if she can't escape. A girl collects a set of things provided to the orphanage. It includes a few clothes, worn-out shoes, and a couple of hair garters. It's sad to realize that I have to live like this. There's nothing in this suitcase that truly belongs to the girl. For some reason, the child had previously tolerated this kind of treatment, but there was a point to it all. If she had managed to escape, she would never have said goodbye to Frayne. If the beauty follows her mother, then after some time a story will begin in which the sweet heroine of the first part will grow up in peace and happiness. A girl runs away from home and travels to a neighboring empire in search of adventure, where she meets a friend. A love story begins. This couple is destined for a happy ending. It couldn't be any other way, since they are the main characters in this book, which has already begun. The death of the villains ensures this ending. Good things await those who have done terrible things simply because they are the main characters. It's undesirable to watch what's happening, so the little girl will change the course of events to prevent history from continuing down the same path. If we leave things as they are, fate will prevail, but if we change history, we will be able to avoid the villain's fate. The heroine won't allow herself to be broken the way her mother was once broken. She bandages her leg as it hurts greatly from the fall. Moving the bed aside to look at the door, the little girl finally notices it. It leads straight into the pantry, which was locked. Unlike the other children, the heroine lives in a room completely alone. If she were left with other people, there would be problems. It was for this reason that she was given a separate room. It was obviously a way to isolate the villain from everyone else. If the girl manages to open the door to her room from her closet, she can easily get outside. This is exactly what she so desperately needs. A plan was drawn up, so the beauty returned to the second part of the novel. She was confident that there was information that would help. The protagonist of the second book breaks into the house of a high-ranking lady in an attempt to rob her estate. The boy's plans quickly fall apart, and before he knows it, he's caught in a trap. He's captured almost immediately. Impressed, the lady appoints the young man as her successor. He meets the heroine, embarks on many adventures, and eventually finds happiness. First of all, the hero must never end up in that place. That's how the chances of a happy ending are reduced. We need to find a place where we can live, changing the course of history. We need to avoid meeting them as much as possible. The only person capable of protecting Daphne, even if only temporarily, is the one who will become the protagonist's stepmother, Chloe Benedito. It's important to prove your worth. There's a reason the woman adopted the boy. She wanted to use him as a weapon for her revenge plans. The girl once lived in the same orphanage and was later sold on the black market. This act was committed by the caretaker. Chloe, having overcome adversity, rose to the top with the Benedito family. The best option was a place steeped in horror. According to the novel, the caretaker kept documents proving his fraud. The protagonist later set out to find them. The girl decided that as soon as everyone fell asleep, she would go get the papers. She would be able to escape and make a deal. An hour later, the bell rang. The sound meant it was midnight, which meant it was time to take action and set out on the mission. Daphne was smart enough to wrap her arms and legs in pieces of cloth so she wouldn't make any noise. The girl heads to the principal's office. She's incredibly lucky because no one stands guard at the entrance. Quietly entering, the beauty closes the doors behind her and is immediately surprised. Around her are millions of luxury items that are of no use. This man now appears even more extravagant. Perhaps he managed to secure funds from a sponsor other than the Empire. There's no time to think about everything that's happening. I need to quickly find the documents before anyone arrives, and that's all I can think about. There was nothing in the first drawer, so the maiden moved on to the second, which was also empty. The last drawer was locked. For some reason, it still wouldn't open, even after several attempts. There's no key nearby, so I'll have to start searching before it's too late. The novel's protagonist is strong enough to likely open the box without a key. However, the maiden herself would be unable to do so, as she is too weak. Sighing, the heroine tries to think things through calmly. The overseer is an extremely absent-minded person, so he might have forgotten something. The director is one of those people who doesn't like to move around much, so this definitely doesn't belong on the back shelf. We need to think about minimizing movement. Surely the thing you need is in one of the flower pots by the table. There simply can't be any other options. The man is left-handed. The girl watched him and quickly realized this, so she looked in the right pot. It turned out to be the golden key she needed. Looking over the documents she's dealt with, the girl chuckles. She doesn't understand what's written there, having not mastered the alphabet of the new world. The beauty sighs with relief as she stuffs the papers in her bag. It doesn't matter what's in them, because there are quite a few pieces of paper that will help her in the future. A strange seal catches my eye. Since it's hidden in such a place, it must be of great value. Even that must be taken. Strange footsteps are heard in the hallway, sending the beauty into a panic. If anyone finds out she's trying to escape, they'll simply kill her. At the last moment, Daphne hides. Two people enter the office, discussing where Eunice plans to take her charge. The brunette assures that the girl will not die, even if the one she is taking her to finds out about her purple hair, just like Frayn's. In any case, there's no one to take care of the child, so it doesn't matter. The director freezes as if he's suddenly noticed something below. The girl already thought she was caught, but the young man directs his attention to Eunice, telling her she's beautiful. The two begin a relationship. The woman doesn't want to be alone in this place because it's cold and dark. She wants to get to a warm bed where they can do everything. The couple left after such a heated argument. The child's entire life literally flashed before her eyes, and she was terrified. There's no time left to think. I need to hurry and leave so as not to bump into anyone on the way out. The lady leads the way through the office. A lamp can be seen in the distance. The adults said they fill the lamps with oil and store them in a warehouse, so there are many more of them there. Leaving just like that no longer seems like a good idea. The plan is being adjusted. The clothes are lying on the bed as if the lady had been sleeping there. The shoes were also placed in front of the door. This should definitely work to make everyone believe in Daphne's plan. The main thing is that no one notices anything, and if we cover our tracks well, everything will be wonderful. It's time to say goodbye to the shelter. A new life begins, but the heroine promises herself she will survive. The beginning of the story will be changed because the beauty will not sit and wait for her time. The lamps were in the storeroom. They were truly the only things left, as nothing else had been given out. Now their time had come. There's plenty of oil, so it'll be possible to create a fire that will burn even all the bones. No one will be able to figure out Daphne. Everyone will think the girl is dead, and then her life will be much more peaceful now that no one knows her identity. A match with fire flies to the floor. Now that the villain's daughter is dead, the caretaker will be held accountable and the child benefits will be cut several times over. Even with this turn of events, the beauty still doesn't feel guilty about anything. The blame lies entirely with those who work there. As soon as the heroine is forgotten, she will return. From now on, the orphanage will descend into complete chaos, which will be impossible to stop. No one walks the streets at night, so the lady quickly reached Benedito's secret door. It's located in the hedge behind the bushes. According to the novella, only clients with secret business could pass through this door. No one else knew the password. You need to pretend to be such a client and simply give the password. If her memory serves her right, she should guess everything correctly. Everything turned out to be correct. She knocked on the wall 3 times in the right rhythm, and then the bricks began to slide aside. There's no one inside. Further on, the lamps are lit, so the heroine decides it's time to move forward. Below, a light appears, and a man notices with surprise that a child has entered the estate. The boy's voice is very soft and as handsome as his appearance. He asks again, as if asking someone else, where the child came from. The girl gets straight to the point. She's come to meet the owner of the merchant guild. He's not the kind of person you can just meet so easily. The young man refuses. He asks her to leave so as not to give in now. The girl takes a deep breath. She shouts that she wants a deal. The next words are already approaching. The man's head begins to spin from the loud sounds, but he is unable to calm the child down simply by doing so. A few minutes later, Chloe comes downstairs, frowning. Someone had caused a commotion in the middle of the night. It couldn't have been a man. The young man points downward. Looking down, the woman notices Daphne, who repeats again that she's come to make a deal with the boss. The child wants to say something, but it's not yet clear what exactly she wants. She asks to be accepted into the merchant guild. If this is right, she will repay. The next second, the heroine hands over the papers. She heard the orphanage caretaker say that these documents must not fall into Benedito's hands. The mother chuckles. She doesn't know why the girl came or how she found the documents, but she's not sure it's anything worth noting. Slum kids can do this job too, and they might even be quicker. The lady expresses her displeasure. The heroine doesn't understand how this could have happened. The main characters stole the documents because Chloe desperately needed them. The girl switches the topic to her hair and its color, which is quite rare. Her brows continue to furrow. In this empire, this color is truly not seen as often as one would like. At first glance, it's clear that this beauty is Frayn's daughter. Damage is all Chloe can get from this child. She asks to come back, but she's being nice for now. The maiden turns away. Clearly, this woman has proven even more terrifying than she initially appeared. She too desires death because the child is the villain's daughter. Screaming, the lady insists she'll definitely survive. The couple is distracted by a commotion outside. Word is that a fire has been started at the shelter. Mother asks to make sure the children are safe, but she is stopped. Daphne only set fire to her room to fake her death. If she returns, she'll be killed. It's logical, since the maiden is the one who needs to be punished. Changing the course of history is inherently difficult. Everyone wants to die, but fate can't take over. Even Chloe refused, but there are other options. The blonde's expression suddenly changed, suggesting they start over. Something has changed. The girl has become more welcoming, so she asks what the other woman wants. That's the motive. Daphne wants to survive, but Benedito is a man for whom manners are not just empty words. She wants flowers and a proper greeting. There's a ton of snow outside. Lady has to find a way to get flowers, as Chloe wouldn't accept anything that's easy to find. Outside the city, there are places where flowers grow even in bad weather. You might encounter monsters and beasts there as it's night outside. If you're unlucky, you might even die. But if the lady is also willing to do anything, you need to find one red flower before dawn. This is a test to ensure the seriousness of their intentions. The heroine nods, promising to collect at her own discretion. The man catches up with Daphne. He offers her better shoes and introduces himself as Lennox. A beautiful cloak also fell over her shoulders. The young man didn't want the little girl to return to the estate with a cold. The walk to the city gates is long, so Lennox suggests escorting the beauty straight to the gates. It will be safer. It's truly dangerous outside the city, so if anything happens, the woman is obliged to return. She can't say no, or she'll die. The heroine preferred to be in the mountains, where there was not a single soul, because everyone who was around before did not miss the opportunity to mock. This guy shouldn't force himself to sympathize with someone like that. There's disappointment in his eyes. Half an hour later, the couple arrived at the gate. All that remained was to step through it, and then the girl would find herself outside the city, right in the forest. One last time, the young man decides to ask the heroine if she wants to stop before it's too late. She shakes her head in disapproval. The woman runs forward along the path. She's thought about this before, but this goes beyond what she imagined. It's too dark and quiet around here. It seems as if there isn't a single soul in this whole wide world. For a while, the girl could only hear the sound of her own footsteps. But very soon, everything changed dramatically. A growl could be heard right behind her. There's a wolf behind me. I don't want to believe it because it only means more trouble. Taking off, the beauty runs into the distance. The girl's shoe catches on one of the bumps on the path. Her leg gives way to the side, and then she falls. Kneeling down, the lady examines her leg. It hurts terribly, and perhaps that's the problem. But it feels like this is its limit. She has no strength to continue. Tears stream down her cheeks. The beauty came to survive, but ultimately, it's clear this place will become a grave. A butterfly is visible in the distance. Its beautiful lilac color immediately catches Daphne's eye as she sits on the ground. Surprisingly, butterflies can be seen in this area even in winter, which is usually impossible. They flutter around. The butterfly may be trying hard to show you the way, but don't trust it right away. The color seems very familiar. The purple isn't too dull, but it's reminiscent of the heroine's hair. It's a bit darker, which already gives a hint. This reminds me of Frayne. She looks like a butterfly, but was abandoned by the man she loved. Mother spent the rest of her days in captivity. She wanted to believe in the best, but the lady wasn't sure if Mom could have gone to heaven after everything she'd done. She didn't consider her a villain. Still, following the butterfly, the young lady apologizes for the wait. They come to a cliff overlooked by a full moon, and on it are those very flowers. The flower she needs is quite high up, but the little girl is sure that if she is extremely careful, she will definitely be able to get there without any problems. Climbing out, the girl notices that the ground has caved in a bit. She needs to be much more careful on the way back to the estate. Level with the plant, the heroine reaches forward, hoping for a breakthrough. Her hand finally grasps the bright stem. A smile instantly appears on Daphne's face. She's managed to make the impossible possible. She feels like jumping for joy because success is so close. The beauty thanks the butterfly, who resembles her mother, for helping her find the flower. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet collapses. Lennox went looking for his new acquaintance anyway. It would have been foolish to let the child go alone, and he saw her plummeting down the slope. My thoughts are jumbled. My injured leg hurts so much it's impossible to concentrate. The image is swimming before my eyes. Dying is impossible. The lady worked so hard to obtain the plant, and she can't let it end like this. It's hard to breathe, and her body aches profusely. The lady thinks the end has come, but she wakes up in a soft bed, clutching her throat as it's being pressed. A young man with beautiful pink hair hands me a glass of warm water. His smile seems friendly, and he asks how I'm feeling. The girl fell off a cliff, and Lennox brought her body back to the estate. The flower had already been given to Chloe. First, it's time to introduce yourself properly. His name is Ricardo Benedito. He looked after Daphne for several days. At first, she felt lousy, but after a while, her fever finally subsided. Her leg still requires treatment. The beauty is completely exhausted, and she doesn't know if she'll be able to walk again. The uncertainty is extremely frightening. The girl is hurt, but everything will be fine. From now on, the boy will become her brother, which of course is not the best option, so she jumps aside. Benedito, walking out the door, asks what no means. The girl looks better, even though she was originally asked to bring a flower, not to return crippled. The whole situation left the woman deeply distressed. It's worth being a little gentler with someone who's suffered just as much, even without realizing it. In the novel, the blonde was described as a cold person, devoid of doubt and remorse. She was portrayed as extremely vengeful and cruel. After all, what's written in books isn't always true. Virgo sits down next to him, saying she wants to at least apologize first. The girl walked out the gate looking frightened and tired. Chloe didn't even hope she'd be able to do anything. After all, the flower was now in the estate. The plant is called statia and has pain-relieving properties. They grow only on rocks, and growing them yourself is very difficult. 100 zlotys is a good profit for a flower, but it's not so precious that it's not worth giving. It's amazing how Daphne made the impossible possible. The girl managed to win this deal, and since Benedito received both the documents and the flower, she must listen to the conditions that her new acquaintance sets. The blonde doesn't want to ask for too much, but she does ask to be made the new successor to the merchant guild that Benedito runs. The demands have increased, and it seems excessive, but the maiden quickly clarifies that the guild itself isn't important to her. She simply needs to obtain the status of heir that will be granted to her. If the baby becomes the successor, even the protagonist will not be able to do anything. And this is how the course of history will be completely changed. If you need power, it's easier to enlist Chloe's support. That's not the most important thing, as the young lady wants to completely change the ending. After the villain dies, her daughter must also die because it symbolizes a happy ending for everyone else, including the main characters. I don't want to blindly follow people's wishes. They can do what they want themselves, but the heroine herself doesn't want to live that way. The blonde promises herself that she will write her own story. She will do everything to ensure that her fate is happier than that of all those destined for it. Even if there's no chance in a fight, you have to try. These are too bold a statement, so the little girl falls silent. She doesn't want anyone to notice that she's not a child. Chloe says she was sold to a horrible place for menial labor long before she could even grow up. She's been through a lot of hardship. All of the lady's friends suffered a similar fate. Some died, and some lived so hard that it was easier to die. It turned out that similar things often happen to children at the orphanage, and the director was behind it. The lady decided to take revenge. Benedito won't let the man get away with it. He has no right to sleep peacefully after what he did to the others. The woman worked hard to get the opportunity to punish the guy accordingly. The information in the papers will help. The lady needs a duke and Chloe needs a director, so they can help each other. Everything will go exactly according to plan. If a child wants to work with the main guild, she must learn the value of items and learn how to make deals. This is exactly what the protagonist was told. Now the woman tells Daphne all this, which means only one thing. Obviously, she will be allowed to stay and become the heir by title alone. At first, the blonde thought she was simply offering support. But she appreciates dreams, determination, and willpower. Good qualities are always important for an heiress and a daughter. From now on, the lady will become part of the family and will be called Benedito. It's an honorary surname she has earned. Leaning closer, the girl hugs the baby, welcoming her into herself. She exudes a kindness and warmth that was sorely lacking. Lennox was the first to help Daphne. He carries the girl in his arms, and when she asks if he's having a hard time, he nods in denial. The chair won't be ready anytime soon, so there's no other choice. Walking on crutches is out of the question. The woman doesn't know if she can trust the man. They're not a real family, so it's unclear whether they're planning the same thing as Yulin. Distracting the girl from her thoughts, the young man mentions her new hair color. It's now snow white, just like her eyelashes and eyebrows. Hair can turn gray from shock. It changed because of what happened, and it's Lennox's fault. The main thing is that the heroine is alive. The girl doesn't feel too sad. She's lost the hair color she got from her mother, but now she and Chloe share the same features. Mother bestowed a new color, as if bestowing new life. From this point on, things get more interesting. The conversation is interrupted by Ricardo, who asks the family to go into the dining room. A variety of delicacies have already been prepared and laid out on the table. The food here turned out to be completely different from what we had at the shelter before. It even made my mouth water. Chloe notices her daughter staring at her food. Perhaps she doesn't like it, or there's some other underlying reason. Assuring her that everything is fine, the blonde prepares to eat. First, she should learn her responsibilities as a member of the guild. In exchange for the blonde's shelter, something must, of course, be done. There are just two simple conditions that must be met. The first has to do with the girl's body. She's too weak, so of course she's no good. We need to make every effort to change that. The second thing is finding hobbies you want to pursue. It's worth coming up with at least 5 activities you enjoy and telling Benedito about them. The blonde thought she'd have to do the work, but it wasn't so. All the conditions for becoming the successor turned out to be too simple. There is nothing more important than health, especially since the success of a business depends on how hard a trader strives to do everything in the best possible way. A girl should learn to achieve everything she wants, no matter what. She needs to hide her desires, but first, she needs to acknowledge them. You should do 2 things that the mother asks. After the conversation ends, the lady takes a briefcase from under the table. She forgot to give it back. The girl stares at her possession, mesmerized. There in her pocket is a seal, and she doesn't know if Chloe has seen it. The blonde didn't throw the item away because she thought it was valuable. She was probably right. Perhaps the lady is waiting for the seal to be handed over to her. It's a last resort. Come to think of it, Mother said earlier that a merchant should remain calm in any situation. Smiling, the beauty says, "Thank you." She never thought her thing would be saved, and when she says it, she means it. The heroine nods. It becomes clear they're not going to show their trump card. This is exactly how Chloe's daughter should be. Benedito is getting ready to leave. For now, Lennox will look after the girl, and Ricardo will definitely learn healing magic to help his sister. For now, the young man's first order of business is to fix the girl's hair. She had cut it off back in the orphanage because it was the subject of ridicule. The little girl must have been terrified, but there was also a slightly different reason. She thought they were much worse than everyone else's because of the color. Come to think of it, the beauty had even more serious problems. The sentence isn't finished because the young man begins to sob. It's strange that a man cries when it doesn't concern him. Another brother promised to learn magic to cure the villainess's daughter. This family has too many oddities. They're all trying to help a child they've known for less than a month, tops. They do it sincerely, unlike Yulin, but it's still worth issuing a warning. The girl is greedy, so don't be too nice to her. Slowly opening her eyes from sleep, the girl hears her brothers discussing what happened. Lennox is confused and doesn't console his sister. Even Mother, who had seemed less kind, asks for respect for Daphne. She has been given back the last trump card she holds. Everyone is so kind that you wish it were real. The next morning, the woman wakes up and realizes she seemed to hear the voices of her new family while she was sleeping. Perhaps everything that happened was just a simple dream. Dreams must have come to life in a dream, and it's no longer as wonderful as if it had happened in reality. She wants what happened to be real. She could ask questions, but she lacks the courage. She thinks she'll only bother everyone unnecessarily. The blonde opened the door and entered the room, immediately plastering on a smile. Her daughter woke up rather quickly, which undoubtedly pleased her. The girl dreamed something good, but she wasn't sure of it. Benedito nods, wringing out the water from the towel. I can only hope that at least the next day I'll have a good dream that brings me joy. This woman is truly kind. It feels like they've truly accepted the villain's daughter into their family. It's hard to understand why she's so lucky. Trying to hold back her tears, the little girl finally collapses. She asks her mother why Lennox and Ricardo are so kind to her. they're the first people like them. The girl realizes she's said everything out loud. The lady will want to know why she asked such a question, but she might also say she hates the girl for no reason. It's scary to realize what's coming. Taking Daphne in her arms, the lady carried her down the hallway. She had managed to prepare a gift for her that would certainly be well-deserved. The blonde was brought into a beautiful, spacious room. In the middle stood a bed, which would now also belong to Benedito. A finger points to the closet in the corner. There are plenty of outfits there now, so the girl will have plenty to wear. There's no need to worry about anything. The room turned out to be full of useful things. The lady had prepared a table and bought a doll, which would be good company for the child if necessary. It's hard not to notice that the room has truly been decorated for Daphne. She starts crying again, insisting that she loves everything. The blonde doesn't understand why she's being treated so well. The woman is so caring that it's hard to believe it's real. At the very beginning, Benedito thought she'd be provided with everything she needed, and that was it. If her mother continued like this, she wouldn't want to give anything away. Trying to reassure the child, the girl assures him there's nothing to be afraid of. She didn't think it would be so difficult to accept care. The heroine simply doesn't know if she has the right to accept everything she's given. A girl won't be able to bear being told one day that she's simply not loved. Deprived of the warmth and care she was given, she won't be able to find the strength to move on. In the future, when a girl has a child, she won't want him to go through anything like this. She already wishes him happiness in advance, even when she's little. The same goes for Chloe. She doesn't want this to happen, and she achieved a high position because she overcame many difficulties. It's even unbelievable that her daughter had to endure everything the heroine herself did. She didn't want Daphne to understand the cruelty of the world so early. Now, the virgin is the child of this woman and can calmly go about her business while the rest take care of everything else. This means the blonde won't even have to do anything. Naturally, they expect her to grow up healthy and happy. To live a good life without worries, you need to try not to get sick, do whatever your heart desires, and enjoy everything around you. If you overcome the difficulties, you can achieve what you want. Ricardo and Lennox don't intend to inherit the Merchant Guild, so don't worry, they won't be left behind. The little girl was afraid that she was taking away her older brother's place. But in the end, it turned out that there was nothing to be embarrassed about. These words were something the beauty had never even dared to dream of. Just one sentence warmed the young lady's heart incredibly. The tightly closed gates opened. It's hard to believe that now the lady can receive love and all that it brings with it. They said Daphne was now part of their family. They would help each other achieve their dreams, so there was no reason to give up on love. My first wish was to be able to call Chloe Mom. It's not even a wish, but the girl was the first to start a relationship. Another wish is for Benedito to teach the child to write. I want it to be the guild leader, someone I can trust. It's worth pretending the second wish never came, because after all, the mother was going to do it sooner or later. There's no point in asking. The brothers arrive to talk to their mother, but upon noticing the embrace, they immediately join in. Ricardo tries to push Lennox away, bringing a smile to the heroine's face. Closing her eyes, the lady thinks of nothing else. She just wants to thank them all for treating her with such reverence. A young man with dark violet eyes follows a slightly older man. They both wear cloaks to avoid being noticed. Before dinner, Ricardo pondered how to make Daphne's life easier. He suggested leaving the house only when necessary. The girl will be lonely if everyone leaves. It was this thought that prompted the hero to this conclusion. He wants the child to feel love and care. Chloe is also joining in on this challenge. She'll be finishing all her overtime work at home instead of in the office, at least for a while. Mother changed a little. They began taking turns caring for the new family member, trying to invest as much emotion as possible. Now the little one even smiles more often. She enjoys every day, thanking God that she is no longer alone. The girl sits over her books. She doesn't understand some assignment, but she plans to ask her mother when she gets back. It's past 11, usually bedtime. Today the maiden made a mess of things because she confused the cocoa prepared by Ricard with Lennox's coffee and drank the wrong drink. Eventually, the mother became angry and scolded them both harshly. They immediately, obediently lowered their heads, apologizing for not having looked after the baby as they should have. The girl couldn't sleep due to the effects of caffeine, so she continued studying in Chloe's office. But then Chloe was called to the Capitol on urgent business. Now it's clear that Benedito will be late. The beauty rubs her neck, which has become stiff from sitting in one place for so long. The clock glows brightly when someone passes through it. It should be Mom, but instead, two men in cloaks emerge. Virgo's vision is poor, but she understands that the moment has come for the novella's protagonist to appear. For some reason, there are two boys, making it difficult to distinguish who is who. It's unclear whether what's happening is connected to the mystery that surrounds the man, but readers never received a detailed description. The brunette rushes forward, telling the other he's caught the girl. The boy was caught trying to kill Chloe, but this man doesn't look anything like the description. It was on this day that several partial coincidences with the original occurred. Because the lady accidentally drank coffee, she remained awake until late that night, and her mother departed for the capital. It seems that history is putting everything in its place, and the road to the outcome prepared for Frayn's daughter is once again stretching out. Grabbing a blade, the man forces the beauty to reveal the location of the head of the merchant guild. She remains silent, so he decides to take action. A second later, cries for help can be heard throughout the estate. The girl refuses to die just like that, and at this precise moment, the brothers rush into the office like lightning, but the brunette is in no hurry to let the girl go. He asks no one to come near, or he'll do harm. I don't want to believe that the jerk who took the child hostage is the main character. A middle-aged boy stands to the side as if he doesn't care. Ricardo orders his sister released, but of course, no one listens. He casts a magic circle around himself to show the others that they shouldn't play with such things. The wizard turned out to be quite good, so within a second, her arms and legs were wrapped in chains. Daphne plummeted to the floor. Lennox catches the girl at the last moment. He puts his hands out to keep her body from hitting the floor too hard. The couple is so distracted that they don't notice another boy attacking from behind. A moment later, he too is chained up. Even when the young man was hanged, he didn't make a sound. Everything seemed secure, so the brother returned to the young lady to ask how she was feeling. Speaking at such a moment is truly dangerous. The girl, her eyes wide, notices the hero behind them breaking the shackles on his hands and feet. It's hard to believe this man was able to break the magical chain. He's approaching with incredible speed, and it seems he's not aiming for the heroine herself. The hero ran past those standing around, and instead of attacking them, he simply killed his partner. Horror was visible even on the faces of the elders. It's terrifying to realize that someone who recently threatened others has died so quickly. It doesn't make it any easier because the person notices everyone else. The young man was about to do something, but in the end, right on time, Chloe arrived and made him soar into the sky. The boys attacked Daphne. Even Mother's arrival didn't make things any easier, but the people she loves are safe now. So that realization makes things easier. Judging by his appearance, the hero is just a child. His beautiful violet eyes are reminiscent of the one described in the novel. This boy is definitely the protagonist of the second part of the novel. Now all doubts have finally disappeared, and in its place comes realization. Either way, the boy is no different from other killers. It's best to do the same to him as everyone else, for safety's sake. The story won't end if the main character dies. Then everything will end, but it's unclear whether that's the right decision. The woman lowers the boy to the ground, telling the brothers that they should think things through and not jump to conclusions. His mother wouldn't have killed him. According to the original plot, he would become the successor, and she would be the one who could convince the young man with her words. Coming closer and smiling, the girl chuckled. Considering how terrified Daphne was, the young man couldn't hope for the quick death he deserved. The girl never imagined her mother could have such an expression or such a tone of voice. That's why her admiration for the chapter will never end. The plot has already changed. Everything began to change as soon as the beauty deliberately took the lead role. She understood exactly what she was getting into and what she intended to do. The boy's death will end the original plot, but then the lady will become like the people she hates. This seems like an even more terrifying ending. If any harm is done to the child, the beauty will blame herself for the rest of her life. It's always very difficult to watch those final moments. According to the novel's plot, the girl faces an extremely unfortunate end, but that's precisely why she doesn't want to harm anyone. The blonde begs him not to kill the young man. Even though this is the last chance to bring the romance to an end, I don't want to build my happiness on someone else's misfortune. It won't lead to anything good. Everyone takes turns apologizing for how they behaved. Everyone knew Daphne was impressionable, but not that sensitive. No one pressures or judges me for what I've said. On the contrary, people around me try to tell them that they should follow my example in the future. The boy looks at the heroine again. There's a certain power in his eyes that sends shivers down his spine. Something's definitely wrong. Turning to Ricardo, the beauty hints at something odd. He needs to double check so he doesn't accidentally regret it later. The test was successful. The blonde had been watching the whole time and concluded that the eyes had changed slightly. Daphne was right. The hero was hypnotized, and the spell was cast very casually as if the man didn't care. Chloe's tone shifts to a stern tone, revealing how deeply she's hurt. Those thugs dared to harm this boy. In any case, the family can't leave the young man in the house in such a state. The cage in the forest used to catch wild animals comes to mind. Even though the hero was hypnotized, it doesn't immediately change his essence. It's worth finding out who's behind the assassination attempt, which was originally aimed at the leader. It's good that no one was hurt. The girl looks around, realizing that this is now her new family, and they really do get along well. The beauty chose this family herself, consciously. To live a long and happy life with her family, she promises to change the plot. The story is rather convoluted. Although the hero grew up here, the past of the Benedito Merchant Guild was almost never mentioned. It's unknown what happened to them when he left his position as head to marry Maria. I want to protect them all from danger. Killing someone isn't an option, so the little girl plans to surround the protagonist with care and win his favor. That way, she can change something. The girl finds herself back in her dream. She remembers being unable to move her legs, but now she's running desperately as if she's late. The woman seems to be running away from someone. She turns to look behind her but sees no one, for the surrounding darkness is impenetrable. There is someone in the darkness, and this creature will soon grab the lady, who, for some reason, is no longer able to move from her place. A blonde man tries to wake the young lady. His name is Winston Chesila, and he is the guild leader's secretary. The girl immediately says she wants to go closer to the enclosure. She wants to see that boy. Winston brought a chair. It had been prepared long ago, but no one had used it, judging by the fact that the man found it in the dressing room. The whole family was lying this whole time. They were just taking care of the girl because she seemed too fragile and small. There's nothing terrible about that. The beauty was brought to the very forest where, according to Chisila, the boy's enclosure was located. He was safe. The young man still hasn't touched the food they prepared for him a little earlier. It's dark inside, making it difficult to tell if anyone is there. The hero was not seen because he had huddled in the very corner. His head was lowered to his knees, and he seemed overwhelmed by everything that was happening. His stomach makes a whining sound, but the boy does nothing. He's been trained during brainwashing, so he won't dare disobey this order. This is precisely why the handsome man didn't touch the food. The woman involuntarily recalls herself in the orphanage. Even when the table was laden with food, she was given meager food, and if she ate anything, she suffered the pain of blows. The beauty wants the brunette to eat, but she doesn't know how to make it happen. She asks the man to drive her a little closer to the cage. The girl wants to feed him herself, even if it's dangerous. His stomach growls too loudly, and he refuses to eat, despite his intense hunger. The boy might be frightened by the adult stranger. Putting your hands in the enclosure is a bad idea, but generally speaking, anything is allowed. Approaching closer, the woman looks at her new friend. As soon as the lady says hello and smiles, she notices a hostile look that burns right through her. The heroine can't just throw a sandwich at him, so she decides to smile and act as carefully as possible. It was kindness that even helped Daphne herself. She asks why the boy isn't eating. If he continues this way, he'll lose his strength and won't even be able to escape. It seems everything is starting to work. The lady puts the plate behind the bars. She just wants the baby to eat well because she knows what hunger is. Water also appears next to the plate. And after this signal, the brunette grabs the food and begins quickly devouring the sandwich. He is truly very hungry. Still, the lady was glad her new friend had a wonderful meal. He needed the strength to feel a little better than before. The girl promised she wouldn't put her hands in the enclosure, but something went wrong. Before leaving, she plans to leave a blanket so the baby won't get cold. Winter isn't over yet, so it's best to cover up to avoid getting sick. Next time, the lady promises to bring more goodies. At their next meeting, the heroine asks for their name. She will respond with hers, and thus they will be able to get acquainted. As the couple walked away, the brunette watched them closely. He didn't understand what was going on inside him, but for some reason, a strange feeling had arisen that he couldn't shake. Chloe refused at the table. She wouldn't allow anyone to visit the boy anymore because he'd been raised to be someone willing to kill others on demand. The girl didn't expect her mother to be so adamant. The first step was to get closer to the hero to gain at least some benefit. If the blonde doesn't come back, the guy will likely continue to starve. That can't be allowed to happen, so she resolutely gathers her thoughts. There must be a way to convince Benedito. Even Ricardo is touched by how kind his little sister is to everyone else. There's no need to worry about that. It's time to make use of the second wish. The beauty wishes to communicate with this child on a permanent basis. The boy's still too young. He won't eat like he used to unless the girl keeps a close eye on him. The girl promises she won't go alone and won't enter the cage. If he tries to harm her, she will, of course, surrender. The blonde truly feels sorry for the child, who is innocent. After all, she's allowed to do as she pleases. The very next morning, the beauty arrived at the cage. Ricardo led her there. She pointed forward, straight ahead. The young man sits sadly, but as soon as he sees his girlfriend, his face lights up. He looks very much like a puppy who has been waiting for his owner all day after work. Sighing, the lady glanced at the pasta standing near the bars. The guy hasn't eaten again, so he might have to go straight into the cage. Ricardo won't let him get down on the ground, but his sister reminds him that she saw him grab a pillow and a blanket. He also packed mittens and a scarf for warmth. The most important thing is the hot cocoa, which has become a favorite. With shining eyes, her brother asks if Daphne is happy, and she nods. The woman accepts the drink because she can't say she doesn't like it, just because it's too sweet. The man took pains to prepare it. Laying out all the warm clothes on the ground, the blonde approaches. The young man's eyes dart intently over what he sees before him. He looks with such curiosity at something he's likely never seen before. The boy has been under magical control this entire time. It's worth trying to extract more information. The pillow falls to the ground but closer, and then the beauty asks for help moving to the right place. Sitting down on the soft surface, the blonde greets the brunette once again. Now they are finally a little closer than they were before. There's no point in asking about hunger, as it's rhetorical. The girl brought warm soup and soft bread, as well as a few assorted fruits. The little girl asks if her friend would like to try the food, to which he nods enthusiastically. Unfortunately, she can't give it to him so easily. Lowering his sad eyes, full of humility, the brunette allows himself to be beaten only in order to get some goodies in the end. It's strange, but why do something like that to a child? He didn't even eat what was prepared that evening. There was truth serum in there, added for further interrogation. Surprise takes the beauty by surprise. The brunette detected the serum simply by its scent, which is almost imperceptible. The woman decides to ask about memories from the previous place. She wants to know where the guy lived, how he was fed, and how exactly he was treated. After a few seconds of thought, the boy says he was beaten, kicked, and yelled at. For every offense, the punishment only doubled. This hero truly did have such a difficult past. If everything had happened in the novel, the young man might have lived a peaceful life if his mother hadn't abandoned him. The hero was treated worse than Daphne, and they wanted to make him a murderer at his age. The lady should be glad for his misfortune, since he didn't kill her, but it doesn't work. Somehow, this couple is similar. They don't even notice how it works, but they're sure it's true. The girl can't hurt him, she's not that strong. She has to do something to give him food, just like she said. Last time, the beauty asked me to tell her name when they met again. The time had come to fulfill that promise. The name is already known from the novel, but I want to refer to it only after the character himself says everything. The boy's name is Ragnar. A smile spreads across the heroine's face. She's certain this name is truly beautiful, and she realizes the moment has come to call him by that name for the first time. This will be the first step toward closer relations. The girl watches with a surprised expression as the boy eats everything offered at the speed of light. The boy was very hungry, but now, after finishing his meal, he finally thanks her for the offer. It was delicious. Noticing the man behind Daphne, the young man begins to hiccup. He's so big because he's an adult, and he'll probably use force too, which is incredibly frightening. Ricardo isn't at all scary, so he doesn't understand what the young man is so afraid of. He blinks in surprise. Turning to look at the tall boy, the girl examines her brother again. Most likely, he was intimidated by how tall the boy was, but she needed to figure out how to change that. The boy seemed to calm down a bit after the heroine herself tried to explain everything. He removed his hand from his mouth and lowered it. Ragnar hates big people. He was constantly punished, which led him to develop a fear of those who don't even hesitate to do anything. Until this moment, Daphne had realized they were similar, but not that similar. She now realizes they are identical. The heroine wants the brunette to learn about the bright side of the world. She pours cocoa into a cup, saying it's the most delicious and hot drink in the world. The blonde knows she's lying, but she's trying. It's her favorite drink, but she's going to give it to a new friend who needs it. The young man doesn't understand whether he can really drink what was offered. In such a case, he should agree to everything possible, as long as it comes from good people. The girl apologizes for giving away Ricardo's cocoa, but he promises to make some new one. The brunette exclaims in surprise that it's delicious. Daphne smiles. He's so simple and sweet that he wants to hug her. The boy asks the young lady why she's staring so intently. I think it's his eyes. Everyone says they're disgusting, but that's not true. They look unusual because of the vertical pupils, like a reptile's. There's something special about the pupils, and it's the absolute truth. The lady asks Ragnar to look at his feet to ask her something. Due to the fall, the beauty is unable to walk and uses a wheelchair to get around. The boy carefully examines the bandages. It can't be disgusting. The lady wants to hear the answer she needs, so she smiles slowly, looking straight ahead. The girl also thinks the eyes aren't disgusting. She likes the color purple, so she asks to look at his eyes a little longer. Once the young man is safe, everything will be even better. The lady would like to admire them often, so she will visit the cage daily. A blush appears on his cheeks. The boy can't believe that his first friend in his life will come to him every day and look into eyes that everyone finds repulsive. A week had passed since they'd met. Lennox hadn't been able to use the serum because the boy felt everything. That's why the blonde came up with her own method. They play a new question and answer game that even the hostage enjoys. The interrogation turned into a game, and it was in this way that the lady learned Ragnar's name, as well as the location of the group of hired killers where he was. It was too late, because when the guild arrived, no one was left. The next day, the young man was the first to ask how the lady had lost the ability to walk. When the girl tried to reach a flower on a cliff, she fell, almost to her death. She weaves the purple plant into her hair. Everything is great, as the family is working hard to get the baby well. Everyone feels it's their duty to do everything possible. Ragnar has an older brother. He promised to take the boy, but if he really wanted him, he wouldn't have left him in a place like this. That was a long time ago. The boy doesn't know his exact age, so he can't say exactly when his brother told him about it. He was still little. The game was over for the day. Ricardo arrived at the perfect moment, noting that they were already heading back to the estate. Next comes a question for Daphne. The young man holds a bag in his hands, which definitely contains something precious to her. It involves tracing something on the ground with a stick. First, the man uncorks the bottle of potion he brought with him. The branch was watered, and then smiling, the young man asked his sister to help him with something. She wouldn't do too much. Benedito originally drew something on the ground, and now he's asking me to trace it with a stick. That's what he needs most. It seems as if the family is simply playing. Ragnar, sitting in his cage, can't see what's happening outside, precisely because his back is blocking his view. A circle forms on the ground. Thanks to Daphne, they dealt with it quickly, which is good news. Rika should thank his sister for speeding up the process. The young man seems overly pleased to be showing kindness. The blonde nods, as usual. That's how an older brother treats children, even if the girl is a child on the outside, but an adult on the inside. Ricardo is about to perform something incredible. He places his hand on a circle drawn on the ground, bringing it to life with magic. The girl is curious to understand what exactly such a sign represents. She helped, so she has every right to know everything. The man watched over Ragnar for a week. All the spells had worn off him, so after a brief consultation, they decided to connect the hallway of the house with this place through a distortion of time and space. For some reason, they're using teleportation circles, which the boy doesn't like. He clearly knows something about this, and that's why he's so upset without saying why. The couple's eyes met, and the young man instantly brightened again. Lennox knelt down, scooping his sister up into his arms. He was about to show her everything a little closer. Ragnar desperately clutches his friend's hand. A strange emotion flickers in his eyes, but it's clear he seems to be worried about something. It's gotten significantly colder lately, so it's not a good idea to constantly go back and forth. They can't forbid their friend from seeing them, so they decided to link the location to the mansion. The boy slaps his cheek, making a strange sound that echoes throughout the room. He can't believe this isn't just a dream. The girl rushes forward, asking if everything is okay. Everything is wonderful because now he has a new friend who cares about him. Now Daphne will be able to spend more time with the young man. This is a cause for joy that spills out uncontrollably. The wound needs to be tended to first. Lennox reaches for the boy's cheek, saying he'd given them quite a fright with his sudden movement. It's hard to believe the main character is so stupid. The way he sometimes behaves makes you gasp and wonder what's going on in his head. In the novel, the young man has a bad character, to such an extent that even when he became close to the main character, he constantly quarreled with her. That night, the lady also decided to check on her friend, lest he get bored. She made her way to the hall to avoid being noticed, which she accomplished quite easily. Mother's lullaby was so warm that the girl almost fell asleep. She had to resist with all her might. The chair rolls forward a little and the blonde is transported to the forest using teleportation, which should be tested before use. Ragnar will likely be surprised by the girl's visit. He may react however he likes, but for now the heroine hasn't seen anyone. It's dark all around and the lights are out. The beauty has forgotten that it's night outside, and the boy should be asleep long ago. Daphne hates the darkness with all her heart. The darkness carries hatred for the girl. She thought she had escaped it, but the memories haunt her mind to this day. It's becoming difficult to breathe. It feels as if the prison will soon swallow the blonde whole, leaving no chance of escape. Everything is swimming before her eyes. The heroine tries to stay conscious and not give in to fear, but nothing works as expected. My hands begin to shake, but there's no point in calling for help. A light like the moon can be seen in the distance, but it's the eyes of the boy who stood up. Beautiful violet eyes shine brightly, warming everything around them with their light. This light envelops the baby, enveloping her in a beautiful embrace. No longer holding back, the heroine says the young man's eyes are simply wonderful. This makes him smile almost immediately. The blonde came to the forest without her family knowing. A smile spread across her face, as it was obvious the beauty had been missing her friend. This is also true because there is a grain of truth to it. However, the whole reason is that the lady wanted to give away something valuable. The mug with the lid on revealed hot chocolate. The boy loves this drink, and this discovery was only recently revealed. He asks if Daphne likes it. The little girl probably wants a delicious drink right now, too. The blonde turns away to decide what to say. Sighing, the heroine finally tells the truth. She's not exactly a fan of hot chocolate, and this news shocks her new friend. The girl used to say it was the best thing you could drink, but now she's apparently fallen out of love with it and offers the guy some to try. He takes a sip. Daphne comes and plays with Ragnar every morning, and at night she brings him delicious food secretly without anyone knowing. If this continues, the boy will become dependent on his friend. Over time, the brunette will find it difficult to hate his acquaintance. And this means that the main goal of the plan is already very close. Noticing how the beauty is behaving, the guy sharply asks if Daphne likes sweets in general. There's nothing wrong with that, so the girl decides to say it. She doesn't like it because it's too sweet. The girl is afraid she'll melt along with some candy. Her fears are quite strange and incomprehensible, even to her friend, who is surprised. It's almost true, because something delicious makes you forget everything. Chocolate-covered marshmallows are a love story in themselves. Sometimes Daphne feels like her will to live might simply melt away. She doesn't know how to explain it or fix it. A light laugh interrupts my thoughts. It's because my friend is truly acting like a child, which is endearing. The girl is worried about melting, which is already considered funny. She's too cute to evoke any further reaction. The child considers his acquaintance to be exactly like him, which irritates him. Daphne is about to leave, but the young man stops her by the arm, asking for forgiveness. The young man promises to hold the woman's hand until she doesn't melt. He wishes for everything to be all right. The girl trusted the brunette, so now he's obligated to protect her as much as possible. It's winter outside, but Ragnar's smile blossomed. In fact, the young lady will not melt, and she is not afraid of it, but everyone wanted her dead because she is the daughter of a villain. It is not clear how exactly the only friend will react when he finds out the whole truth about the fact that the heroine's mother is Freyne, about whom everyone knows. The next day, the brothers went for a walk with the girl. There was no snow left outside because it had all melted. 2 months had passed since the lady arrived at the estate, and a month had passed since he met his friend. Ragnar had begun to hide something, especially recently. When he is alone, the boy seems to be busy. But then, noticing a familiar person, he gets very scared of everything. The discussion of spring plans continues in a completely chilly tone. Ricardo plans to take a walk with Daphne, just as Ragnar wants. Trying to place his hands on the bars, the boy seemed to have injured himself. He clutched his hand, which had begun to hurt intensely. A wound with blood flowing from it was discovered on her wrist. The girl anxiously tries to figure out where exactly it came from. It seemed one of the bowls had broken. The young man had been cleaning it and had injured himself. He said nothing, hiding his intense pain. Problems like these need to be discussed, but at least there will be a scar. For some time now, this has become a good thing for the boy. Everyone says scars are badges of honor, something to be proud of. Everyone says that, but my family has never heard of it. Daphne looks disappointed, even angry. She tries to calm herself by asking if the people who beat him that day said that. The boy's reaction was calm, as if that was how it should be. He sat there completely alone and continued to endure everything that was done to him. It's hard to resist someone, but even so, I want Ragnar to be truly happy after everything that happened. A young man shouldn't mistake his scars for badges of honor. He doesn't deserve the pain that affects him so deeply because he wants the best. The people who told such nonsense and lied, I honestly don't even want to know about such things. The girl is feeling bad now, and she's incredibly upset. It's time to leave, but before disappearing from sight, the heroine asks her friend to never hide such things again, so as not to make the situation worse. I don't want any of them to feel bad, and with this phrase, the boy understands that they are just taking care of him, as they should be. Even after hearing that everything will be all right, my heart remains unsettled. I wonder where Ragnar, who matured so early, used to live. A place where you can't show your feelings, where you won't learn to fight, where you won't be shown the beauty of flowers. It's probably cold and scary there. The next night, the blonde snuck up to the cage as usual. She was determined to find out exactly where her friend used to live. It was a scary place. Memories make the brunette cower. Human screams can be heard there, filling the walls. People were killed there with ease. The boy was promised permission to meet his older brother if he killed, but he refused. When that happened, magic was used. After all the fear that haunted him almost constantly, Daphne saved the young man, and now he is completely safe. Before finishing his story, the brunette asks his friend if she's afraid of dark places. He's been around long enough to notice. The heroine has already given herself away, so there's no point in hiding. She's genuinely afraid of being in the dark, where they'll catch her. The father who cruelly abandoned his child is also consumed by darkness, so the maiden fears the same end doubly. The young man quickly grasps the situation, but tries to empathize fully. He wants to know why the father abandoned his daughter. It's all because the girl is the daughter of Freyne, the villain. I want to tell the truth, but I don't know what Ragnar will think or how he'll react. This boy hasn't even seen flowers because of his imprisonment, but perhaps he knows from somewhere about the villain and everything she managed to do. It hurts to speak, and the words seem to refuse to come out. But it's worth saying sooner. This is all because the lady is the daughter of someone who deserves death for his crimes. The young man's expression is impossible to read because tears completely obscure his vision. He could be angry, or he could be in shock. If the lady had eyes like other people, she would be able to do much more and hide much more skillfully. The lady is afraid to look at Ragnar and hopes he will be different. After a while, the boy nods his head, knowing everything, but it changes nothing. The girl herself is not to blame for anything. It's unclear why she was hated so much because of the way she behaved. Daphne doesn't deserve to die, and the boy isn't going to make it so that others would speak ill of his friend who is now afraid of it. Even if the girl is the villain's daughter, she still saved the boy. Such actions are completely unaffected by what's happening. Even if everyone around is against it, the boy will always love and protect the young lady so that no one hates or bullies her. Even memories of a past life didn't always save her. In that terrible place, there was no one she could trust. Now everything has changed. Someone has appeared in this world who is ready to protect the beauty as much as possible from everyone else. The last question the young man asks the beauty is about Ricard and Lennox. They are family, but since Ragnar himself is not part of it, then who is he? This could only mean one thing. The brunette is a friend who is now friends with Daphne. She hadn't even thought about it. Due to a difficult life, the girl never had any friends, so she shifts the conversation to friendship. If she thinks back to her past life, she had good acquaintances. If a young man cares about who he is, it's safe to say it's his best friend, the first and most important. Without finishing her sentence, the lady clutches her throat. Suddenly, she feels like she can barely breathe, and she feels cold. She doesn't understand what's happening to her. Daphne can't speak anymore. She tries with all her might to change something, but nothing works, so she falls to the ground. The brothers were the first to hear the noise coming from the room where their mother and sister usually spent their time. They immediately rushed there. There's nothing wrong with barrier magic, but if the magic is destroyed, something heavy must have fallen. The girl could have fallen out of bed while sleeping. There was no one in the room, but then everyone noticed the boy holding Daphne in his arms, saying that he was afraid that she would die. Mother puts her hand to her forehead to check her body temperature. It's been a while since she fell ill, so it's understandable why she's feeling this way. The girl doesn't die. They don't explain anything to the boy, because everyone around him is so upset even without him. Lennox follows Chloe, and Ricardo stays behind. The lady will be fine. The young man is also badly hurt, so it's best to step away and talk. He doesn't want to go back to prison, so the hero asks to stay at the estate until Daphne gets better. It's time to treat her wounds. The boy is carried away, even if he wants to be with his friend. After his wounds are treated, he will be taken to his room. When asked what happened, there's silence. Everything is perfectly clear after all. The girl probably came to play at night. This was all simply because the young man wanted to spend more time with his acquaintance. He didn't know what consequences this would lead to. Rika doesn't know what to say, but she ponders the fact that the boy walked out of the cage so easily. Somehow, he'd remained inside all this time. The brother extends his hand as if beckoning. He needs to give the girl some medicine so Ragnar can come with him. Previously, this man had scared the young man to death because of his tall stature, but in reality, he turned out to be a sweetheart who tries to please people. The hero even used magic to stay close to the blonde. But no one blames him. They understand that now is not the time. Brunette would like to be treated the same way if he were his brother. For now, he'll have to enjoy what he has. The girl's eyes gradually open. She asks for water because her throat hurts so much, and someone immediately hands her a full glass from the table. Only a minute later does the beauty realize Ragnar is beside her. Mother has allowed him to stay with her until she gets better. It turns out that it was the young man who brought his friend back to the estate after she lost consciousness. She wants to be angry, but she can't do anything about it. The young man had been planning to escape for a long time. He knew how to do it and was already planning it, but he kept putting it off because of his new acquaintance, who showed concern. The girl fell ill because of her friend, but that's not true. She insists it's not her fault because she decided on her own that she wanted to see the boy much more. The boy climbs in for a hug just as Benedito enters the room, her mouth falling open in surprise when she sees that her daughter has woken up. The baby finally woke up, which made her happy. The woman was very worried, as the girl had been in this state for about a week. Lennox also joins the family. He talks about his uncle, who was very surprised by what was happening. He had to help. Daphne has woken up safely, so Chloe wants to get back to talking with Sherbold. They'd agreed on something before. The young man could have left the cage all this time, but he didn't. His motives aren't immediately clear, but it turns out he was afraid of frightening Daphne. They'd tried to hurt her before, so she had to be careful. At midnight, Ragnar finally got out, despite his instructions. She wanted to help, so Benedito thanks her for it. Initially, she was going to find Bertold Sherbold's brother, but from the stories he told, it's clear he's not a good man. Rara said they'd take him away, but it turned out to be just a lie. He promised to come only if the boy became good and diligent. Bertold didn't take the child because he doesn't keep his promises. He'll definitely be killed upon his return, which, of course, is terrifying. In that case, we need to find a place for Ragnar to stay. A guest room has become available where the young man could stay for the time being. The brunette can't believe his ears. This means his mother has absolutely no objections, and that's good news, because he always wanted to live in a normal family. Rara is thrilled to have this opportunity. Chloe smiles because being a child isn't exactly a happy place. Now her daughter has a new friend. Ricardo puts an end to the childish behavior and calls the family. It's time for dinner, as everything is getting cold and everyone will join in. In the end, Ragnar became part of the family, just like Daphne. He'd never seen food like this before, so he looked a little funny. Evening had come. The blonde realized she had indeed done the right thing, but she also needed to sort out the passage into the forest, which was no longer needed. Perhaps it's because of Daphne's health, or perhaps because of something else, the lady can't stop worrying. Her soul still feels uneasy. Her legs still don't work properly. Because of what's happening, the beauty doesn't want to interact with the outside world, and her home is very far away. The family tried numerous medications and other treatments, but ultimately nothing worked. They can only hope in God and in the guy who promised to help. The next morning, Sherbold was given new clothes that fit him perfectly. He also noticed Daphne's new dress, which turned out to be wonderful. It was quite cold, but the moment has finally come when you can switch to summer clothes, which fit perfectly. Rara is gradually beginning to get used to his new home. He's even started learning to write with his new sister. The boy turned out to be quite talented, so everything worked out as well as possible. He helps Lennox and learns to cook with Ricardo. The blonde is glad that her friends' relationships with everyone are starting to improve. Everything has been going as smoothly as possible lately. The young man interrupts her train of thought, saying he's found just the right gift for the girl. She opens the envelope, noticing that inside are a scarf and mittens. The boy did it himself, but he's not happy about being so late. He wanted to give the kit earlier, but he had trouble knitting. Lennox helped, and even if they were practicing alchemy, he would finish his gift. This is something that was done secretly in prison. The items turned out to be uneven lengths and oddly knit. And given that winter is over, they're pointless. However, the lady thanks her for the gift. It's cold in the evenings, so the set can be worn then. Rara compliments the color, which suits her, but they are interrupted again. A tall man with blonde hair bursts into the room. The man says he has no intention of harming anyone, but instead rejoices in the fact that he finally got to see Daphne. This young man is the girl's father. He smiles, although this can't be true. Deep down, the beauty is very surprised because she doesn't understand how this is possible. Finally able to meet his daughter, the blonde man starts crying even harder, trying to say something more, even though he's clearly not getting anything out. The boy's eyes are as golden as the heroine's own. He doesn't understand how anyone could say such cruel words to him. In this country, this color is mostly characteristic of nobility. This means that this person is definitely a nobleman, but it is unclear what his name is. It would be better if it was just a coincidence, though. because she bursts in at the perfect moment. She throws the door open furiously. Her face contorts with anger that's hard to contain, while the girl loudly screams Axelius's name. He came uninvited. Noticing Claire, the guy starts crying again, even though he just calmed down. He compliments her on how cute she looks as he stands next to her. It could be her mother's boyfriend, or perhaps there's a more complicated story at play. The blonde can't figure out what's going on as the two stare at each other. A second later, the lady raises her hand and starts shouting, as has already been said. You should always go to her first and then move on to the others. This is what happens when an uncle doesn't listen to a woman. Lennox tries to ignore it, but the screams are too loud to be heard throughout the estate. Looking at the picture that appeared right in front of them, the beauty asks her brother if this is really the crybaby that was mentioned earlier. Finally calming down, the girl exhaled heavily. This was too much. Claire had dared to raise their daughter, who deserved to know her father, in secret from him. Sadness envelops her body as another wave of hysteria begins. Without further ado, the girl declares that she isn't his daughter, because that's impossible. It seems the parents need to talk, so the brother suggests going for a little walk. Before leaving, the mother asks if the little girl is scared or surprised. The woman didn't want to try to show her emotions in any way, but her uncle was crying so hard that her heart ached. He looked incredibly sad. Daphne is too sweet. She's beautiful not only because of her looks, but also because of the kindness she exudes. Her smile seems kind too. 5 or 6 years ago, before leaving for the outskirts, the young man spent one night with Claire. That's why it seemed like it might be his child. Commoners don't have hair the color of gold that the girl has. It's most likely his child, but for some reason, Chloe insists the father is another man. Several minutes pass in complete silence. The hero doesn't bother asking for details, as it's obvious his beloved doesn't want to discuss the matter. The man was definitely called for a reason. It probably has something to do with Daphne's legs, since she spends most of her time in a wheelchair. The girl injured her legs in an accident, and even Lennox and Ricardo were unable to fully cope with the problem that occurred. In this empire, or rather, on the entire continent, these two are the best in alchemical magic. They had to do something in this situation and help. Chloe tried many different options, but ultimately nothing happened. Although they hesitated for a while, as it was better to keep the girl hidden, they eventually got to work. Axelius was called because the last resort was healing at the temple. That's where something might be possible, and even if it didn't work, things couldn't get any worse. She doesn't want to think about the worst. Claire hopes that Daphne will eventually get back on her feet and grow up to be a healthy child with a future. By taking a girl's hand in his, a man promises he will do everything possible. He can be trusted because nothing bad will happen. Axelius smiles, trying to stop the tears from flowing from the lady's eyes. Everyone is willing to do anything for the sake of the person they love. An appointment was scheduled for a week later. There, they would try to heal the beauty's legs, and then perhaps everything would truly work as intended. The girl is being packed for the meeting so they won't be late. She asks Lennox if he'll come with them, but he shakes his head. The paladin will pick him up. The door opens. The lady sits in anticipation, having no idea who exactly will come to take her away. She can only rejoice at how things will turn out, and it is that very man. They plan to head to the Iman temple. The blonde promises that his daughters will help there. His full name has now been revealed, Axelius Chainard. The crybaby turned out to be quite a high-ranking person. Most likely, the young man noticed the genuine surprise on the young lady's face, so she decides to pull herself together. Before leaving, her brother asks if Daphne is going to take with her, as usual, the scarf and gloves she has grown to love. Gloves should be worn until it gets warmer, and the scarf can be used as a blanket. The girl would really like to go with her friend, just as he wants to. Ragnar has no choice but to disturb the people around him. The heroine herself is exactly the same, which is perhaps why they became best friends. She doesn't want anyone to accidentally find out that the beauty is the villain's daughter. She's afraid it will come out. She wants her legs to heal as soon as possible. The couple is met by their mother in front of the carriage. She asks Daphne to come closer, delivering a beautiful hat that will protect them from the spring sun. The thing must fulfill its functions and cover her face. Everything will be fine just like that. So the blonde thanks everyone for taking care of her. The temple doesn't accept other guests, so there's no point in worrying. The beauty nods her head, trying to reassure herself. The girl gets into the carriage. The family remains outside, waving and expecting the heroine to return very soon. They will miss her very much. A smile suddenly appeared on her face once again. The woman is grateful to all her friends for supporting her at the right moment. With the courage the beauty was given, she could well go forward and reach the end. Her confidence has increased exponentially. An hour later, the carriage arrived at the temple. One of the nuns who greeted the guests joyfully greeted Sir Chanur, whom they hadn't seen for a long time. Uncle smiles, waving to everyone who sees him. Now Daphne sees that this crybaby really is the paladin she never thought he was before. At least the beauty won't be thrown out of the room because she came with an important person. Whispers are heard all around because no one understands who exactly this child is. As he entered the main hall, Axelius rolled his chair forward, oblivious to the conversations going on around him. The lady's eyes swivel from side to side, trying to see everything a little better than it actually is. She's trying to take in everything that's happening. The Holy Mother is already waiting for the couple in the main hall. She smiles, greeting Shaynard, and then gestures to the seat next to her. The man says that they haven't seen each other for a long time, but the woman laughs because they saw each other the day before. Bending down a little lower, the lady studies the beauty, who looks frightened. This is the very child they wanted to ask for earlier. The woman learns that the girl injured her leg in an accident. She says she's tried every treatment, but nothing works. It turns out the heroine is in a more dangerous situation than initially thought. The Holy One plans to begin treatment almost immediately. Virgo is enveloped in a strange warm energy, reflected in white. It clings pleasantly to the body, making one feel more comfortable. Her feet are getting warmer. The woman had just tried one thing that day, so she asks to try moving her feet to see how sensitive they are. Nodding her head, the beauty agreed to get it done quickly. She concentrated on getting up from the chair as quickly as possible. Gritting her teeth, the maiden hopes that everything will be all right. In her head, she literally begs her legs to start moving before it's too late. Everything went exactly as planned. The only downside is that the beauty continues to tremble, trying to calm down. Getting back on your feet and becoming fully functional will take a lot of time and effort, but it will be worth it. The Holy One can help. The blonde smiles. She never knew what God's mercy was, but now it's finally dawned on her. Now she understands what it means to be cared for by God himself. His Majesty has also arrived at the temple. He knows High Duke Axelius is inside, so he tells the guards that they urgently need to speak. This man is the crown prince of the Clemens Empire, but they dare to block his way for some trivial reason that is worth nothing. The protagonist's attention is drawn to a strange noise coming from somewhere behind her. It seems something is happening there, but she can't figure out what it is. The Duke worriedly inquires about the girl's well-being, but she shakes her head, saying she's fine. She just overheard something. The Holy One distracts Sir Chaynard. She wishes to speak privately for just a moment to discuss the situation in full. The young man asks Daphne to wait a bit. No one will be allowed into the hall, so security will remain here. He hands her a lemon-flavored lollipop. Waving his hand, the blonde assures her he'll be back before the lady even realizes he's been gone. And he'll have time to eat the gift. It really won't take long. The door closes, and the little girl is left completely alone in the enormous hall. It seems no one will actually enter because silence falls. With no one else around, it's finally time to take off the hat that's been in the way all this time. It's much easier. The lady is about to take a look around, but the creak of the door interrupts her thoughts. A middle-aged boy with light hair and eyes enters the room. The man immediately greets the girl and asks her a question. She's unsure whether the young man knows anything about her in general or if he's someone new. The girl immediately understands that the best option is to leave as quickly as possible. But because of fear, she cannot move a single muscle in her body. Looking the heroine straight in the eye, the boy asks if they arrived with the Grand Duke. It's obvious that this is true, but confirmation is needed. The hero notices rather late that the beauty has beautiful golden eyes. This means she is the daughter of Axelius, who is exactly like him. The Duke listens to the Holy Mother, who is genuinely very worried about the child's condition. Daphne is in quite poor condition. On the one hand, the lady is confident the girl will get better. She understands the young man is impatient, so she lays it all out there right away. Her body is different from other children, and one can tell it requires a lot of energy. The temple's method of healing ordinary people's wounds is similar. However, if she has enough energy, she can fully recover. Taking out a strange basket, the beauty says that this is exactly what will be needed to cure the heroine. Something else is also needed, but she's in no hurry to reveal that. Her problem requires urgent intervention. It's impossible to complete the treatment quickly, as the new energy must have time to accumulate in Benedito's body to a sufficient level. The treatment will take about 2 weeks. This isn't a very long time, as the girl had to undergo treatment for about a year before this, which exhausted her. The Holy One falls silent. She notices that Daphne has eyes like Chainard and hair like Benedito, making it seem like she's their daughter. The story of Axelius's unrequited love is well known in the capital. His love was intense, while Chloe didn't treat him as if she wanted to be with him. The woman decides to put aside these unnecessary thoughts. She will take full responsibility for the treatment and asks that this be conveyed to Benedito so that she won't worry so much. Trying to change his mind, the young man tries to explain that this is not Chloe's daughter because he doesn't want everyone to know about it. A scream is heard from the main hall. The girl desperately defends herself, shouting that she doesn't want to answer questions, while the prince tries to pressure her. The young man is outraged that the duke's daughter has golden eyes, while he, the emperor's son, has only ordinary gray eyes that are not noticeable. The girl knows nothing. The children at the orphanage pointed at her, just as this stranger is doing now. She was constantly criticized for everything. The duke steps forward, blocking the heroine's view. He asks His Majesty why he has arrived at the temple in such an unexpected manner. His eyes reflect complete awareness. The beauty hadn't even thought it was the prince she already knew. The boy truly seems unrecognizable. Finally, the maiden also remembered the story and the details of this character's appearance. He was born with normal eye color, and now it bothers him. This man is also the fiancé of the main character from the second part of the novel. Now he asks if there is a place in the empire where he is forbidden to go. Simon Rogelio Clemens is the only heir to the Clemens Empire and is currently the crown prince. The boy is quite intelligent and has a perfectly toned body. He can do many things simply because of his talent. The child was born into a happy marriage between the emperor and empress, so he received boundless love and attention, and his personality is almost perfect. The young man has only one flaw, or rather, a complex that was instilled in him. Golden eyes are a symbol of royalty, but he was born with gray ones. Come to think of it, the crown prince was the main character's official fiancé, but he hated and insulted her. There was probably a reason for that too. All this because Maria inherited golden eyes from the duke, who himself possessed them. She greatly irritated him, although she did nothing about it. The girl understands Simon's feelings, but she will never forgive his ignorance of herself. Everyone is curious about the boy's presence. Axelius frowned. He was no longer in a good mood because Daphne was scared. People go to the temple to pray. That's not the reason used here. It turns out the prince heard the Grand Duke forbid everyone from entering the premises, so he arrived immediately after the guard's announcement. The young man had heard that the Duke was keeping an eye on the progress of this temple. After his death, Axelius would become the heir apparent. The blonde doesn't understand the meaning of the hero's sudden return. On top of all this, there are many questions about why the others were barred from entering the temple. The man was angry. He had clearly told his brother that he had no claim to the throne and therefore could not try to take the place of his already prepared nephew. It's unclear what exactly angered the boy so much, but it doesn't matter anymore. The hero asks one last time, but it's time for him to go back. The story about the temple is even simpler. The child needs treatment, so he turned there for help. She is not his daughter, which is, of course, impossible. They look so similar, but they actually have nothing in common. The hair color is slightly different, but it's a shade lighter. It matches the girl's mother, Benedito, so there's no question about it. The hero asks not to imagine anything unnecessary. He doesn't want other people to paint new pictures in their heads. After all, The beauty is just his friend's daughter. Even the saint thought the heroine was Chaynard's daughter. She's starting to get fed up with the constant interference in her life, never really allowing her to take a break from the spotlight. Looking into her uncle's eyes, the girl asks him to take her home. She's quite worried, but it's not scary because all the commotion was started by her nephew, who is still little. The girl does indeed look tired, so the Duke asks His Highness to go and rest, as he's not in the best shape yet. They'll be home soon. The surprise never wore off. The heroine felt like the prince wouldn't let her go. Clearly, his appearance and his eyes only made the man more worried and angry. The Empress knocks to enter her son's chambers. She wants to remind him that the bride-to-be, who will one day become the new ruler, will be presented that very day. The young man apologizes for forgetting. Today he seems stranger and calmer. Something seems to be bothering him, but he doesn't want to talk about it. The mother is about to ask what happened, but they can't keep the guests waiting any longer. The story will be told a little later, right after the meeting. Initially, it was planned to hold a preliminary election of the crown prince, but the young man will meet with guests without any events. The hero freezes. He doesn't understand why there is no election in the empire, and immediately thinks it's because he was born with gray eyes. As he continues down the hallway, the boy listens to his mother's lamentations. She doesn't understand why he inherited her eye color, which doesn't symbolize royalty. The only thing that can be said to cheer up the young man is that the eyes of the princess who is already waiting for him are golden in color, which is beautiful. Maria is a half-blood, but there's nothing he can do about it. Simon has to accept it because he has no other choice. The boy still doesn't understand what needs to be done and is skeptical of everything. He doesn't understand why he should have to make up for something that wasn't even given to him in the first place. The prince must decide something and choose for himself what he is going to do in the future. But it turns out that nothing depends on him, and this is frightening. If the young man doesn't have golden eyes, then there really is no other way out, and there's no point in looking for one because there's no point in it. A girl with dark hair and beautiful eyes rises from her seat. She comes closer, saying how glad she is to meet His Majesty after such a long wait. The young man nods, saying he's also pleased to meet her. He doesn't know what to say, so he remains silent. The girl truly does have distinctive eyes, which he failed to inherit. All the aristocrats have the same color, but for some reason, the lady in the temple's eyes seem much more beautiful. They seem to glow with kindness. Chloe, upon arriving home, surveys the mountains of purchases. Her uncle and daughter, who had managed to pop into numerous stores upon their return, brought them with them. They looked more like greedy customers than visitors. Seeing Daphne's happy face, the young man simply couldn't stop or refuse. The girl remains silent, but she understands that she herself said she didn't need anything. It was purely the hero's initiative, determined to make this day the best. Still, that day was memorable. After they'd visited all the places they'd wanted to, the man asked his niece if she'd had fun while they were out. It's normal to want your child to have only the best memories of their childhood. If there's a way to do things right, you should do it. People in the shops on the main square offered to buy the father a gift for his daughter. From the outside, Axelius truly looks like a family man, like a parent. The little girl isn't too happy with how everyone is reacting, but she understands there's no point in getting angry. Sometimes she wonders what it would be like if she had a real dad. Arriving home, Rara was the first to greet her, practically at the door. He smiled, asking where his friend had been for so long. She promised to return soon. The heroine quickly explains where exactly she disappeared to, but then remembers the fact that she even brought a gift to a friend, because she understood that it was important. The young man was sure to like it, so the beauty handed him a beautiful box. It turned out to contain a variety of chocolates, which evoked a childish delight. After receiving the gift, the boy's mood noticeably improved. As soon as everyone learned his leg could be cured, they breathed a sigh of relief. Uncle Axelius now visits the family whenever he has free time. He always tells interesting stories. It's nice to just sit still and listen to what you like, but at times the maiden gets sad. She'd like to run with Ragnar. The man tries his best to keep the lady from getting bored. His latest story involves a trip to the outskirts to help his brother. Everything said wasn't in the original book, making it twice as interesting to listen to. The girl is delighted by this turn of events. The young man continues his story. They found themselves in a huge dungeon, completely covered in water. For a moment, the hero even felt a little frightened. Ragnar blinks in surprise. Clearly, he knows nothing. The heroine is unique in that she knows such details, unlike the hero himself. One day, a dungeon appeared and dried out the surrounding land. It's a terrifying place where monsters attack people. Horrible traps seem innocent, but they are worth fearing. Sherbold cringes. It's unclear how Uncle wasn't scared, because in his place, he would have wanted to run away long ago, preferably as far away as possible. If you overcome all the traps and endure, the cave will disappear. People can only be happy after everything is over. As a knight of the temple, Chainard's duty is to look after the people of the empire first and foremost. The girl would like such a good man to be emperor. If reality had been different than it was at that moment, and Axelius had learned about the circumstances of the heroine's mother, then perhaps the story would have turned out a little differently. The little girl doesn't even know where Frayne is buried. I'd like to think her grave is somewhere in a warm, pleasant meadow. The girl no longer knows what to think about, but she wants to escape her thoughts. Her mother certainly didn't deserve to be treated poorly, and her motives still seem strange. That's why the beauty wants to become the new head of the Benedetto clan, so that even if rumors start to spread, she can finish what she started and take revenge. Someday, everything will be all right. Time flies too quickly, and the long-awaited summer has already arrived, bringing with it sunny days and a gentle breeze. Thanks to Daphne's resilience, the treatment has already shown results. The Holy Mother was also surprised by such good progress. Extending her hand, the lady takes the girl's palm, asking her to try to rise, holding onto it as a support in order to stand on her feet. Virgo doesn't want to overexert herself, but she needs to remain calm. She tries to stand up, suppressing the trembling that has suddenly and unprovoked erupted in her legs. Finally deciding to stand on the floor, the lady freezes. She can stand almost normally, except for the fact that she's completely exhausted as if she'd just run a marathon. Adults want to cry. Axelius believed his friend, but he couldn't hope to see it so quickly. Daphne was going to try to take at least one step forward to figure out how to proceed. The little girl almost stumbles. Uncle assures her there's no point in trying to rush, there's plenty of time. She's still determined to do everything as best she can. The second attempt proved much more difficult than the previous one. The girl couldn't stand properly, but in her head she was begging her legs to move, showing results. Her face flushes from the effort, which seems futile. She finally takes a step, and the heroine can no longer contain her joy. She will finally be able to walk. Axelius squats down, instantly hugging the girl. He's glad everything will be okay, but at the same time, he thanks God for how things turned out. It's pouring outside. This upsets the blonde, who had already bought a cake to celebrate his achievement. It's too dangerous to go home. This means the couple won't be able to return to the estate. They'll have to wait another half hour for it to be over. They don't want to get caught in a storm. They could spend the night in the carriage, but the man isn't happy with that. He can't leave the child in such a place, so he suggests they go to his home. Entering the beautiful estate, the lady's mouth falls open in amazement. She never expected to find herself in such a place, surrounded by a beautiful interior and a multitude of maids. Everyone bows their heads respectfully, greeting the Grand Duke, who has lingered a bit. The mansion looks more like a royal palace. Turning to the butler, the young man asks for some water and some house clothes for Daphne. The young lady will not experience even the slightest comfort. All the other servants, except the maid and the man himself, are to go home. There's nothing else to do there, so it's practically in order. The maid offers the little girl a bath. She smiles as she leads the girl on. She can walk freely, so the heroine refuses help. The Duke had previously spoken of the child, but the woman had no idea she would be able to meet the beauty in person. Clearly, this was a gift from fate. The heroine asks about her tea preferences. It's time to warm up a bit before heading out to dinner. Closing the door, the servant promises he'll be back soon. Come to think of it, Uncle had already prepared clothes for the beauty. It seems he regards her as his daughter, which seems sweet, if not quite right. I wish this man were my father, but it's Herinus. There's a knock at the door. It seems the maid has returned so quickly, but Prince Simon is there. Unpleasant feelings overwhelm Daphne almost immediately. She pulls away, hoping another interrogation won't begin. The boy is silent, not making a sound. It's scary because he could start screaming at any moment, just like last time. It was strange. Instead of trying to ruin Benedito's time, Simon suddenly apologizes for what happened last time. The blonde doesn't want to hurt the beauty and didn't want to ruin her mood even that time. She's not weak, but anyone would be scared if they were attacked. Silence descends once again on the room. The young man breaks down, asking the lady to say something. The silence drags on due to the unexpectedness of the words. No one expected to hear an apology. The wayward prince bowed his head, and his gaze softened, making her feel special. Everything was clear from the first words, so gratitude was evident. The hero is glad the girl accepted her apology. He catches himself thinking that he shouldn't jump for joy and thereby reveal his hidden emotions. The young man isn't just at the temple to apologize, given the heavy rain that hasn't stopped. He asks the maiden if she doesn't like the golden color of her eyes. Virgo chuckled. Her interlocutor was quite clever, having managed to solve the riddle of how exactly she knew everything so quickly. She preferred purple. Gold signifies nobility and is a symbol of royalty. But the heroine is not a member of the royal family. This color evokes a bad person. It seems like the hero is trying to talk about his experiences because he talks about how he thought people liked this shade. Listening to others without getting rid of your own fears doesn't seem like the best idea. To avoid conversation, Virgo says she's very tired. Instead of answering, the young man begins to cry. The beauty notices the tears pooling on the floor. Simon reproaches himself for not inheriting the right color. The boy is genuinely envious because he doesn't understand how it happened that he got nothing. He wanted to be treated well. The blonde clenches her teeth. She doesn't know how to support the man, but instead asks him to stop crying. In any case, everything will be fine if he speaks out. The girl's mother said that if you lock away sorrows in your heart, you can get sick. She still can't help, but she can try to fix everything. Even in the worst-case scenario, a woman has no right to leave her child alone. He can tell her everything that's on his mind. From generation to generation, the imperial family inherited golden eyes, including both the boy's father and grandfather. Even his godfather, the Grand Duke, also inherited the right color of eyes. Only the main character is a little different. He tries to pretend everything is fine, but his origins are constantly being questioned, which is a little unsettling. Everyone around him trembles and bows their heads before the prince. But behind his back, they keep repeating the same thing. Everyone believes that eyes are inherited. Simon doesn't understand what went wrong or why his genes are different. Sometimes you have to wonder if his birth was a mistake. This isn't true, because no one has the right to decide what their children will be like. There's nothing wrong with being born special. The lack of golden eyes shouldn't mean he's not the right heir. It doesn't change anything, even if people around him cast doubt on the boy. The parents haven't rejected the young man and love him for who he is. His princely status is unshakable, so we must ask ourselves what the problem is. In any case, the man will retain his title in the future and become emperor. Then, of course, there should be no concern for the bad words that are spoken around. The hero himself is not, and will not be, to blame for what happened. He couldn't change before his appearance, and since it turned out this way, this is how God himself wanted him to be. The girl says all the words she wished she'd heard from someone a little earlier. Children aren't to blame for being born into this world. The boy jumps in surprise. He can't believe the girl doesn't care that he doesn't have golden eyes, which are usually overly important. Tears welled up in Simon's eyes again. He wished he could hear similar words from other people, but it was clearly not destined to happen. After a while, the hero finally calmed down. He realized that the girl had just been comforting him, so he immediately frowned at the display of emotion. Rogelio apologizes once again for how he behaved. Now he's ready to formally introduce himself and say he's the future emperor. The girl smiles, introducing herself in return. She is the heir to the head of Benedito and the daughter of prominent merchants, but certainly not Grand Duke Axelius. The prince nods. He paces back and forth, trying to formulate a sentence. A desire to honor Daphne and become her first friend arose. The blonde blinked in surprise, but reminded him just in time that she already had a first friend, named Rara. He was considered her only friend. Uncle returned to the estate. He opened the door, apologizing for the wait, as he and the butler had been a little late. The man almost instantly freezes in surprise, seeing a boy right in front of him. He greets the Grand Duke, squinting slightly. Asking when Clemens arrived, the young man receives an answer to his question. The boy had originally intended to visit Daphne to apologize. They had already become friends, even though the maid had only been gone for about 15 minutes. The Duke was even more surprised because he hadn't thought his niece would forgive someone who had so frightened her. The Crown Prince did not wish to cause harm, so he simply offered his friendship, which was immediately and joyfully accepted. Chaynard nods. He promises they'll discuss everything later and approaches the girl. They need to discuss some matters with Benedito before everyone goes to bed. Chloe asked for shelter for the baby for just one night because of the heavy rain, but threatened to have the man bring the girl back in the morning as soon as everything settled down. Next, the young man takes a hairpin from his bosom. The item is depicted as a beautiful blue butterfly, which attracts attention almost immediately. The heroine tries to remember where she's seen an image of the item before and immediately realizes it was at the market. The hairpin was on one of the stalls. It was a gift for the beauty's decision to visit the Duke. Somehow, he noticed the girl was looking specifically at her. The girl rejoices, and the man immediately begins to cry from the good moment. The day ended well because at her uncle's house, the girl received treats, a gift, and warm memories. It was time for bed. The blonde dozed off almost immediately, knowing it was time to rest. The butler informs the Duke that he has seen the Crown Prince off. He too is planning to rest, but wishes to convey important information. The man realized someone had said something stupid to Simon. He began to get even more upset and cry, and for now, suspicions fell on only one person. That man was Duke Heranis. He didn't introduce himself when he brainwashed the boy, but the boy remembered everything he was told for quite a long time. Axelius sighs, clutching his head. He'd like the child to get involved in adult affairs, but apparently the aristocrat himself left him no other choice. A child bears a huge responsibility. They've been worried about their eye color since childhood, and it's no surprise that the topic becomes more sensitive with age. The adults have gone completely mad with power. They're just toying with little Simon, even though he's done nothing wrong and was born into an imperial family. The Duke could be given a warning. As soon as the man returns to the capital, he'll likely immediately begin discussing this matter. This can't be left unchecked. The aristocrat will feel unpunished and will try again to ruin the young man's mood. The weather has been wonderful since early morning. The girl went for a walk with her maid and smiled, seeing a whole bunch of flowers and the beautiful sun before her. A lady is getting ready to leave for home. She's handed a box of cookies, personally baked by the chef. A maid compliments her hairpin. The lady timidly says, "Thank you," and receives the same in response. The servants expect the little one to visit them soon, and they set out. After a while, the carriage arrived at Benedito's estate. Her uncle sang the girl a lullaby so she wasn't afraid. He has a nephew, and that's how he learned to sing. Rara was a little late to meet his friend, but he hurried as best he could. Running to the carriage, he caught his breath, as he hadn't slept much. The boy is also a crybaby, because as soon as he returned, he began to sob. Because he was afraid that his friend would not return, and then he would be left alone again. Chloe thanks the man for helping the girl. In any case, they can't be together, as traitors always appear and disappear quickly. If this is fate, then nothing can be changed, but the guy freezes and then asks to go on some trip together when such an opportunity arises. The beauty promises to check her plans to see when they can implement it. The Duke's face reflects undisguised joy. The hair clip also attracts attention. The couple, as usual, begins to quarrel as the girl is being denied the joy of motherhood. In the summer, the uncle invited the beauty's mother on a date. He arranged for the entrance to the temple to be closed so they could all go there together. The woman almost agrees, but no, she can't leave Ragnar alone and is too worried about his well-being alone. This is the only stumbling block. They can all go together. Rara is afraid of other people, but she can wear glasses and a hat anyway. The choice is his, because forcing herself is not worth it anyway. The brunette has every right to go out and have some fun. If something bad happens, Daphne will make sure the offender immediately regrets it. In that case, the young man agreed. He put on his glasses and went with the others to the temple. Upon arrival, his admiration knew no bounds, for the beauty was truly indescribable. Going together was a good idea. Daphne had to go to treatment, so, taking the boy in his arms, the Duke suggested they wait somewhere else. The mother takes the girl to the main room. Before entering, the woman wants to hear about her physical condition one more time. Nothing will change if she hears about it one more time. When it comes to health, all mothers worry. Benedito never received this kind of attention from her biological parents. Another healing session is over. The magic dissipates, and the saint steps away, accepting Chloe's thanks. The woman squats down, saying she needs to discuss something with the saint. While she's gone, the little girl can find Axel and Ragnar. After treatment, I wanted to try walking. Practice makes perfect, so it's best to do this at home. The heroine will try her best. Shouts come from behind the door. The first thing you hear is Simon, who declares that he's officially friends with Daphne, and Raru, who shouts that he's never heard of him. A girl's first friend is generally a female. The guy refuses to give in, so he keeps arguing to get his point across. Urging the couple to stop their commotion, the blonde says she's friends with both of them. In that case, they're obligated to be friends too, even if it's a little difficult. Holding out her hands, the little girl asks to shake them in reconciliation. In response, she only receives snorts while the boys turn away. The two didn't say a word to each other while the legs were being treated. Each pulled the girl toward themselves, saying they would play with them. Daphne promised them both that they would go for a walk, so this doesn't make the situation any easier. They can't share their friend and her time. There's nothing left to do but try to reach her uncle. Her ears and arms are already hurting from these children, pulling her in different directions. She just wants peace and quiet. The girl really does need a break, so Axel plans to leave with her. The overly active children are left alone in the main hall to engage in staring matches. The couple doesn't even know where they are heading, but they are already rushing forward as the first, telling each other that they will be the first. The library, where the beauty has arrived, is a quiet place. From now on, both are obligated to remain silent and not disturb the girl as she enjoys her surroundings. The heroine likes people who remain calm even in such a situation. The boys promise to be the quietest, even if it's difficult. Half an hour later, the girl turns her gaze to her friends. It seems they've finally calmed down. This, of course, is a welcome relief, given the current state of affairs. Daphne decided to read until her mother came to take them home. The book she chose came to her hand purely by chance. The beauty noticed a beautiful butterfly on the cover. The heroine herself doesn't understand how she came to love butterflies. Perhaps it began when someone helped her in the forest. The butterfly flew away, and they never saw each other again. But the girl hopes he's doing well. The moment still brings a rush of warmth to her heart. The librarian said the book was for children, but it spoke of the beginning, when God loved all living things. He decided to bless the world with the gift of birth, but every life had to die. Death is always near, and only after it can one meet the Savior. The girl is inwardly indignant that she must endure such torment before that. I would like to understand what exactly this book says, but there is nothing written on the last page. It was simply torn out by another person. The little girl wants to ask her friends for their opinion and asks them to look at how the page is torn out, but notices that each of them has fallen asleep trying to gain wisdom. Uncle mentions Daphne again. He wants to know who the girl's father is, but the woman is in no hurry to say anything under any circumstances. The man is busy at the fortress, so he must shut up and work. Chloe makes a donation to the temple every year. She truly wants to make Benedito her heir, even if Lennox and Ricardo still exist. Everything will work out, and she will succeed. Axel doesn't want to do anything bad. He's just worried. His fragile, small body will have to deal with difficult tasks every day. Even the maiden barely survived. The blonde recalls a poem found in a book with a butterfly. It was required reading and carried some hidden meaning. The girl recalls the moment when the baby first arrived at her estate. A child who always tries to conquer death will never be able to remain a conqueror of eternity. Daphne will definitely find her true self and realize she wants to do something. But for now, her mother will be her support. The time will come when everything will be all right. God loves those who forge their own path. A servant tells the Duke that the prince has found a way to the temple. He specifically advised him to stay away from Axelius, but he ultimately didn't listen. If the prince dies, the next heir will inevitably be the Grand Duke. The aristocrat Patrick has been making strange movements, so the young man plans to use him to kidnap him. It's impossible to believe the imperial family is playing such a cruel game. A man wants a duke's daughter as a wife when he himself isn't a good match? A marriage will help strengthen his influence. The conversation with the butler is interrupted by a little girl who bursts through the door. She smiles, saying she missed her father. Maria asks permission to come in for a moment. She doesn't want to disturb the work, but that's impossible, so her father calls her closer. The girl made a beautiful wreath of wildflowers for her father. He is truly a lucky man, because such a gift from his daughter is very special. Julius comes in to fetch the little girl. She reminds the child that she must not interfere with the Duke's work, lest they suffer losses, and looks a little irritated. The brunette rushes toward her mother and then hugs her around the waist. The heroine instantly breaks into a smile because her daughter is so sweet that you can't stay angry with her for too long. The woman apologizes to her husband for distracting him from work, but he merely nods. The family can't cause much harm, as such. As soon as the door closes, the man removes the wreath from his head. It's unthinkable to hand over the pretty Mary to some impudent fellow born into royalty. Viscount Patrick, as is well known, hates the emperor because of his dealings with the slave trade. His fortune was halved, and his wife left him. The man dreams of nothing but revenge. He needs to spread rumors and information, and then the Viscount will be able to arrange the prince's kidnapping from the temple. Then they could seize the opportunity to rescue the young boy. It would be good to blame Chaynard, but that would require credible rumors. This would divide Simon and the Duke. If the Knights of Hieronymus save the future emperor, he will listen to the man more than to the great Axelius. No one can ignore their savior. It's too hot outside. The girl doesn't really like summer, only because the weather makes her reluctant to go anywhere. She waves her hand to create a breeze. The boys run around shouting about who won and who lost. This is nothing new because it's not the first time something like this has happened. The friends aren't tired at all because the games bring them joy. It's understandable that they'd like to join in, but the heroine isn't taking the risk given her precarious state. Uncle Crybaby cleared out a spot on the playground, and that's how the area near the temple became a playground. Simon can often play with the others. The crown prince shouldn't be able to run around wherever he wants, but the imperial palace is too boring. Everyone is busy, and no one needs his son because he's just getting in the way. The servants in the castle grovel, but they continue to say nasty things behind his back. The young man has already realized that they don't want to play with him, so he runs away every time. Ragnar said the boy's eyes were beautiful because Daphne thought so too. They were friends, and since it was true, the hero asked her to say it out loud. The lady is a little nervous. She doesn't know if she's allowed to be familiar with the prince. But since she can't say anything, the young man allows her to discuss it later. Rara became a new target of the future emperor's indignation. He noticed his friend constantly wore dark glasses and claimed to have poor eyesight. For a few moments, the friends were friendly, but then they returned to their previous state. The girl's hat flies off and she watches as it gradually floats away and falls to the ground. Rara and Simon are sulking again, so the heroine carefully gets up to go get the thing herself. Now she's able to walk a short distance without the chair. While picking up something from the ground, the woman turns around because she notices a strange shadow. She thinks it's Axel, but instead she sees a strange woman in black. The lady quickly dabs a cloth over her nose and mouth. She doesn't answer the question about her identity and watches as the heroine's eyes gradually close. The prince and Ragnar were next. They were carried into a strange wagon, only to be carelessly thrown onto the planks. The prince let out cries of pain. The young man doesn't understand what's happening. Looking away, he notices his friends, who have also been captured by the bandits and tranquilized. Shouting to be heard, Rochelio asks, "Who are they?" The man with gray hair promises that the question will be answered soon. The Viscount asks why the boy is so afraid. He will understand what will happen to him and his friends, and that's why he will still remain conscious. Now, everything comes back. Patrick was a man punished for the slave trade, which was banned in the Empire. You can't be proud of something you don't usually want to talk about. The boy irritates the Viscount. He sold out several people, but that's the only reason he was thrown out, despite all he'd done for the Empire. A fake with the wrong eye color must remain silent. The man reminds her that the prince's friends are here because of him. His father is also to blame for interfering with Patrick's plans. Before setting out, the boy is also tranquilized. He is not allowed to try to escape or save his friends. It started raining outside. Simon can still feel the tips of his fingers, having been prepared for poisoning since childhood, with small amounts of poison added to his food. The blonde still can't understand how the hero knew Clemens would be at the temple. Perhaps someone from the palace informed on him. The young man wants to know where they're going, but he can't see anything from the cart. There are about 5 kidnappers, but where they're going, there will be more. We need to think about how to protect our friends. They've done nothing wrong and don't deserve to be taken to some unknown place and tortured. If Simon fails, it's all over. A female voice calls to the boy, saying they haven't slept in a long time. Just about to speak, the lady suddenly says the carriage has arrived at its destination. They'll talk later, but for now, the kidnappers want to move the bodies. Everything seems to be in order. The children should be alive, at least until nightfall, and then we'll see when the main customer arrives. A servant offers to look after them, but the man refuses. There's a prince among them, but 2 of them might burst into tears when they wake up, as they're young. Apparently, the Viscount had finally left. He walked up the stairs, and the children woke up almost immediately, looking around. The poison had a very weak effect on Daphne, so she woke up quite quickly, but Ragnar was completely impossible to put to sleep. They were lucky. The boy begins to apologize for being kidnapped. In reality, it's everyone's fault since he came to play with his friends in the temple clearing. They'll be able to get out. Rara breaks the ropes, telling Simon to cheer up and ignoring his surprised expression. Judging by the slope of the stairs, they're underground. Opening the door is unlikely, as they don't have the keys. While the couple discuss their escape plan, the brunette quickly climbed to the top beam. He laughs when asked how it happened. There's a passage up there. There's no point in worrying about what happened, because they'll definitely get out unharmed. The bad people who kidnap Simon will be punished. Climbing up, the girl points ahead because she sees a faint light. The windows are usually connected to the sewers, and that's a good way to escape. The blonde needs to brace herself because she'll have to crawl. Daphne still hasn't recovered, but pain in her legs is better than death in a place like this. Whatever happens, the young man won't let his friend die. The friends reached one of the rooms. There was a lot of blood and strange objects everywhere, so it was obvious that slaves had been abused there. The young man seemed to be feeling ill. Rara's face has gone pale, and the prince himself doesn't look well. Even the heroine herself feels ill at the sight, but she promises to hold their hands. Diva recalls her uncle's words. He spoke of a festival that would take place in the fall, and preparations for which had been underway for several days. When they get out, they'll be able to go for walks together. They'll wear masks at events, buy and eat all sorts of treats, and read books. The girl had already escaped death, and it had been incredibly difficult for her at the time, but she had managed. She had been alone. But now, with her friends, everything would work out. Screams are heard in the hallway. The servants have only recently noticed the children have escaped, so a panic ensues to find them quickly. As the mercenaries retreat into the distance, the heroes quickly run into another room. The prince has decided to carry Daphne, so they speed up. A faint light can be seen in the distance. The exit is already very close, and they are about to run away. But the Viscount's voice is heard cursing from behind the door. The client will be arriving soon. There is nowhere to hide, but in this case, you can hide behind the nearby planks. From there, you can see Patrick perfectly, but not the others. The children must be found immediately. Fortunately, there was a gap in the wall behind the boards, allowing all 3 to hide. The man who was going to pick up the children had already arrived. It was Bertold who stepped forward, greeting his acquaintance. If this man is really who Daphne thinks he is, then he is Ragnar's brother, whom Chloe did not want to look for. Sherbold forbids the man to smile. He's just trying to cover up his mistake. But in reality, he doesn't even know where the children are. The young man refuses help. He doesn't want anyone telling him what to do because he knows perfectly well that they will be found out. There was a child named Ragnar in the group. The man offered information in exchange for the boy. He was euthanized as planned. The Viscount remembers how the young man asked to wait until night, and that is why he did not kill the prince, although he really wanted to. Perhaps the man is lying, which is why Bertolt grabs his neck. He hates people who lie mercilessly without even caring what others think. The body falls unconscious to the ground. Before leaving, the brunette says he thought he'd be able to kill his damn cute brother. As he approaches the boards, Sherbold almost notices the children. They don't want anything terrible to happen, so they try to move away and go unnoticed. The guards continue to bicker about whether the children would have managed to escape or not. Bertold himself knows that Ragnar is quick and has long since left. Breathing a sigh of relief, the friends rejoice that the worst threat is behind them. The lead mercenary orders the others to remain silent. He leans against the boards but senses something, so he pushes them aside, noticing the boys. Simon holds out his blade, ordering them to stay back. The hero surrounded himself with other children to avoid injury himself. Ragnar asks his friend to put down his weapon, as it could be dangerous. Snatching the item from the boy's hands, he lunges at the mercenary. He swings his weapon, twisting his legs around the mercenary's neck. Rara orders his friends to run away quickly. He's confident he can handle this on his own, having fought before. The young man is thrown back, ripped from the killer's hair. He hits his head, hearing the promise of being sent to the torture chamber after the customer arrives. Sherbold is unharmed, but his glasses have fallen to the ground. He clutches his face in horror, realizing exactly what he's gotten himself into, trying to fix it. The prince notices that his acquaintance has reptilian pupils, and he's never seen anything like them before. Even normal eyes don't compare. The hero continues to examine his face, but the woman can't take it anymore and screams at him louder. The sound of footsteps can be heard in the distance, but no one seems to care. Even if Rara and Simon are completely different, that doesn't mean anything will change. They must all escape together and avoid death. A man appears behind them, laughing evilly. The boys should have run while they had the chance instead of talking. It seemed the end had come, but Sherbold came to the rescue. He grabbed a knife and lunged forward at the criminal, who was about to attack. The young man asks his friends to run away. He'll be able to do everything he needs to do alone and escape as far as possible. He thanks the girl for bringing him back to his senses. Simon will take care of Daphne, but that's impossible right now since they haven't gotten out yet. Rara is left alone against a horde of enemies who want to do him harm. In his head, the hero apologizes to his friend for leaving him alone. Because that's what has to be done. They reach the exit, and all that was left was to open the door. If they escape, it's unclear what will happen to the man left all alone, trying to protect himself and everyone else. The young man tells his friend he'll come back. Sherbold looks pretty strong, but that doesn't mean anything. He'd still have a hard time handling so many adults on his own. The girl gave courage to more than just her first friend. Everything will be fine. So all she has to do is wait until Simon gets Rara back. Virgo bows her head, blaming herself for being completely useless in this situation and unable to do anything. Her thoughts are interrupted by voices coming from behind the door. The girl fears there are even more mercenaries there who will definitely not let them leave. The door is kicked open. Axel appears in the doorway, shouting to the boys that he's come to save them. Leaning down, the young man hugs the girl. He was worried that it would be too late, or that something would happen to them. The prince's cry can be heard in the distance. He calls for the Duke to help, still standing, arms outstretched to protect the already wounded brunette. Without a moment's hesitation, the hero orders the Temple Knights to capture every last one. They quickly realize they've found themselves in a dire situation. The mercenaries won't be able to stand against the knights, and now it's clear. The blonde man catches his highness as he plummets to the ground. It's Axel's fault because he's the one in charge of the temple grounds. If anyone finds out, there will be a showdown and suspicion. His Majesty doesn't suspect the Duke of anything because he knows he wouldn't do such a thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Before leaving, the young man approaches Rara. His arm has already been bandaged, so his condition has improved significantly. He hands her a pair of glasses. The hero apologizes for talking about glasses over and over again. In reality, he doesn't care about the boy's eye color or pupils. The blonde rushes to meet her friends. She still can't move very quickly, but she was very worried that they wouldn't return. There's no point in crying, because everything is perfectly fine now. The girl should calm down and process the situation, looking for the positives. Lennox also somehow ended up here. He says all the criminals have been captured and the crown prince has gone to rest separately in a carriage. As soon as the man heard the latest news, he rushed over. He couldn't afford to miss what had happened and see his sister. Mama stayed home, and Ricardo is helping the Grand Duke clean up. They should all go back together and not worry so much. The young man went to the criminals who had been captured. There were 13 of them, but 11 were dead. Because of these people, the youngest was very frightened and almost hurt. They were going to kill her, which makes her incredibly angry. I'd like to inflict unbearable pain on them all, but there are so many eyes around. It can wait, because asking for such a thing is unrealistic. If Chloe were here, everyone would be dead in seconds. The building starts to burn. Death won't happen immediately, so the criminals can savor the moment. The knights standing outside with Ricardo watch as the house is engulfed in flames. This man truly is a great magician. One of my acquaintances raises his objection. The Viscount is dead, but this territory still belongs to him, which means starting a fire isn't the best idea. No one locked the mercenaries in there. The front door was open, so all they had to do was leave, and then the knights would catch them from outside. Even if someone loses their life in the fire, each of them can still be beheaded for treason and threats against the heir. The man keeps showing up, which is annoying. If the problem is with the building owned by the Viscount, then Benedito's family will simply buy it out. There are no more objections, but one interesting detail remains. The knights' cloaks bear the coat of arms belonging to Duke Herenus. According to the warriors, they encountered the temple knights by chance. The leader spotted the suspicious individuals and pursued them to the last. It's too suspicious because there are too many coincidences. Patrick was obviously involved in the kidnapping of the children, but the prince had no idea who killed him. Perhaps this whole mess is somehow connected to the Duke. Or it could easily have been someone else. The prince and princess are engaged, but Mary hasn't appeared at the temple. Only a few months have passed. Everything that happened has long since died down, and the long-awaited autumn has arrived, bringing with it the festival. The girl sits at the table in front of a piece of paper. She writes to Simon, saying that things are going great. They've already designed masks for the upcoming event. After that summer night, an article about the kidnapping of the heir appeared in the newspapers, and security at the temple increased significantly. The rest of the attackers were sentenced to death. My uncle said the emperor paid compensation, but that was a minor detail. Chloe was furious. She felt that since the Benedito family, had also suffered, they should at least receive an apology. The blonde doesn't want to go into details, so she simply says she's glad they'll see each other at the festival. Afterward, the mother promised to take the little girl to work with her. The letter is finished. Diva is about to go for a walk, but someone beats her to it, knocking on the door. It turns out to be Lennox wanting to talk. It's amazing how Daphne can now walk without any problems. The young man suggests going into the living room to show her the surprise they've prepared. The uncle hands over a box, which they immediately open. Inside are beautiful masks of various colors. The butler smiled. He had colored them exactly as the young lady had requested and handed them over as soon as he had finished. Simon will be at the event, so that's great news. Surviving and overcoming all the adversity is the most important thing. On the day of the festival, the couple went to the Empire. The friend never revealed what mask he would be wearing, annoying his friends. The blonde tries to cheer Rara up. Perhaps it's because His Highness wanted to surprise her. Ragnar perked up a bit. He'd been depressed for a while after the spraying until he received the mask. On the day of the kidnapping, Sherbold saw his older brother, which should have crushed him. The boy's heart is big, and she hopes he won't be hurt. Daphne just wanted to hug the boy, but her older brother put his hand forward, warning them not to cross the line. At that moment, the beauty felt joy and did not suspect that she would meet the daughter of her enemy. Upon arriving at the festival, the couple immediately donned masks. They made everything around them perfectly visible, even though it seemed unlikely. Uncle says the children have good masks, but the prince himself is worried about them. He insists they should wear one like his. The lion is the symbol of the Clemens Empire. To keep the young man's mood from getting worse, the lady says they both look cool. They owe it to themselves to have a good time. Their recent memories weren't the best, so they should be replaced with happy ones. The Duke leads the children to a stand filled with sweets and chicken. They have to try them all. All candied fruits taste the same, but a second later, the lady takes her words back. A strawberry appears before her. The children begin to gather around Benedito to tell the story of the shop. The strawberries are stored in a magical warehouse. After a while, the assembled group begins to introduce their names one by one and say that they are glad to meet you. There is no point in denying it, because such an event is really a good place to make new friends. Rara and Simon arrived just in time. The new acquaintances offered to play hide and seek, but the prince declined. Clemens believes they can have fun on their own, just the three of them. They don't need other people to help create the atmosphere. The blonde disagrees. She wants to play with everyone, but she knows someone will have to carry her since running is still impossible. Another squabble ensues. Rara wants to carry the girl on her back, but the heir is taller and has a different opinion. After a while, everything settled down. None of the adults complained about the noise. Ragnar didn't complain anymore, and they simply enjoyed the moment. The children are getting ready to relax. One of them notices some children from the orphanage just around the corner who also want to play. These are the same people who bullied Daphne. No one will recognize her, and she won't hide in a dark corner to avoid getting it. The girl doesn't really want to get involved with those who hurt her before. They've already started the game, so nothing will work out. Simon turns away in surprise. He thought his friend would agree, but overall, he feels pretty much the same way. The friends' conversation is interrupted by a girl in a beautiful dress. She asks if they can play together. You always have to introduce yourself first, so Maria says her name. She just wants to play with people she knows. The little girl asks if the beauty can hide herself, as it would be awkward for the boy. He assures her that Daphne won't interfere. Maria shouldn't be interested in what's going on between them. A friend will never be a burden. Rara calms down after the girl explains everything. She tells the brunette that playing hide and seek wasn't the best idea they've ever had. The heroine begins to apologize. This is her first time playing with someone, so she apologizes for saying something wrong. Simon points to the bored Duke. They're leaving now, even if it's too soon. He wants to spend time with his family. The brunette doesn't understand what happened. She thinks it's all her fault, so she asks to play a little longer. The girl doesn't understand why her friend is acting this way. He seems to know this man, and judging by her clothes, the little girl is from the aristocracy. Realization comes quickly, but the heroine tries to erase it from her memory. She runs to the Duke, who takes her in his arms. Uncle isn't dad, but he remains an honorary candidate for that role. The lady asks if the acquaintance knows Maria. After a pause, the heir says that she is most likely his future bride, who is a descendant of Duke Herenus. The girl really wanted to play with everyone. When her mother saw her off to town, she promised her she'd have a lot of fun, since she was so sociable. The children didn't like the girl. She knew Julius couldn't be wrong, so she invited the children from the orphanage to play together. The others look on disapprovingly. Not everyone wants to play with these kids who are quite strange. But in the end, everyone agrees. On the way back, the heroine was only thinking about who might become Simon's wife. It was obviously Maria Heronis. The maiden didn't think they would meet so easily. Ragnar will remain by the beauty's side, so Clemens will definitely marry. Marie grew up to be a vibrant, flawless woman. Simon looked at her with love, but hated her passionately. In the future, having abandoned the exorcism, he would be able to convey his feelings. I don't want Rara to disappear. The lady herself doesn't notice how she flinches when someone takes her hand and asks how she's feeling. It's nice to know there are friends nearby who will worry. There's no problem, so the lady is lying. Finally, the carriage arrived at Daphne's mother's workplace. This is the building of the Empire's main trade guild, which is famous. There's chaos inside. People are running around, but at the same time, they're performing all the tasks assigned to them perfectly. To avoid distracting the others, the young man goes straight for Salvador. He's one of the Duke's most important lieutenants and is delighted to see him. Crouching down, the man greets Daphne. She looks like Axelius's daughter, even if that's not quite right. Putting the girl down, he suggests going to Chloe's. She's not here, so they won't be inspecting the building. They ride into the distance through their uncle's territories. They all belong to him alone. As she leaves the carriage, the lady does not know which hand to accept and decides to accept both. The mother greets the children and immediately takes the girl in her arms. She asks how their day went and is happy to hear that everything is going well. Next time, they go to the main building together, but this time there is one very important matter in this garden. Under the tree they stand next to, their mother's memories are hidden. They are buried underground. It was time to dig up the box. It had to happen either sooner or later, so they chose a happy medium. 10 years ago, during the Autumn Festival, a treasure trove of important items was buried there as a keepsake. Axel and Salvador also left behind some important things. 10 minutes later, the man found a small box in his hands. The little thing contained precious things that held memories. In the future, this became something more important than everything else. The first thing they do is take out the blade and the sleeping mask. There's also a strange cord there, cut at one end. The things are safe thanks to magic. When the boy was young, he slept poorly and a sleep mask helped. The dagger that kept Chloe alive was a gift from Exilius. The Duke buried the wishing bracelet. It protected the man, but then broke, so it was buried as a memento. The adults discuss their past. Everyone unanimously agrees to be left alone to reflect on their past. While the boys were out walking, Simon suggested they do the same. It would be best to find important things and bury them too. The painting's description of how it will all turn out sounds pretty good. The box will be open the same way, 10 years from now. Almost immediately, the children began discussing what to put inside and where exactly to instill it. The best option is to go to Daphne. They'll let outsiders in since he's a prince, and this isn't some kind of fortress. The blonde nods in agreement. In that case, they'll have everything ready before doing anything. After much deliberation, Daphne decided to write letters for everyone. They would be special and contain meaningful messages. Expressing your feelings on paper and conveying them into the future is much easier than it seems. Virgo managed it quite quickly. As soon as friends read the messages, they will immediately become happy because they will remember their adventures. Opening the drawer door, the woman looks at the seal. It was an important item for the shelter's owner, and it too can be buried. We arrived at the picnic exactly on time. Uncle hadn't slept well, so he practically fell asleep while walking. Everyone around them also wanted to sleep, as if the drowsiness was contagious. The couple couldn't sleep because they'd been thinking about their walk almost all night. The Duke burst into tears because the children were worried he hadn't gotten enough sleep. Sometimes his reaction is a little funny. The man suggests going inside and sleeping, but they assure him that's not the best idea. They can stay where they are. 15 minutes later, the blonde fell asleep. He started snoring, so there was no need for a second check. Putting all the necessary things in one bag, the girl says they need to bury everything. They can use magic, too. What was done will remain a little secret, unknown. In 10 years, it will all be over. While the boys were rejoicing, Benedito wondered why it was so easy to carry out such a thing on the grounds of the mansion. It seems Uncle hadn't slept the whole time. The boys were making too much noise, so it's no surprise he woke up. Sighing, the girl turns away. She's sure Chaynard won't tell anyone, but she'll have to hide the fact that they've been discovered for 10 years. Time began to fly even faster than usual. Winter had arrived, bringing with it a cold you'd like to forget. A whole year had passed, and much had happened in that time. It seemed to the lady that this quiet life was a dream that would end. In the park, the couple spotted their mother and her brothers. They disappeared from sight rather quickly, and the rain only made matters worse. The mud is too sticky to move properly. The beauty is already regretting how things turned out because she can't move her legs. The girl doesn't want to become a burden and ask for help, but her legs aren't yet used to the load that's been placed on her. Ragnar himself noticed the beauty's discomfort. He stopped, asking if his friend would like to be carried on his back. The boy always helps out for no reason, and this time, even the rain doesn't bother him at all. I agree, though. The girl sits on the young man's back. She apologizes but smiles, making it clear that everything is perfectly fine. Along the way, the friends encountered a fox cub, much smaller than in the pictures. He seemed unwell. The baby is still breathing, but since it is in the wild, it does not eat normally to gain strength. In this case, the little one gets the apple. Oddly enough, the fox liked the treat he was offered. Rara left the animal an umbrella, and they continued on. Ahead, a fork appeared, leading in different directions. The fox cub appeared again, as if out of nowhere. He had been following his rescuers this whole time, and now he was running to the left. The little boy stops only to look at the people who have stopped. He wants them to follow him. The thickets become much denser, but ahead a huge cage appears, around which the whole family has gathered. Mother notices those who have arrived and exclaims in surprise. They were simply curious, so they had to follow along. It was possible to get lost by accident, but they steadfastly endured all the hardships and were able to reach the finish line. Lennox smiles as Ragnar says that those two are constantly creating new problems for themselves that are completely unnecessary. Pointing to the side, the young man asks his friend what kind of fox it is. She had completely forgotten about its presence. The lady had completely forgotten that the second part of the original game had many dungeons. But Rara always claimed he wasn't afraid of getting lost. He had a fox guide to help him. This animal must go home. Asking her mother's permission, the woman hears her immediately agree. Raising someone is a huge responsibility, but each of them promises to take care of them and do everything they can to make their life better. Chloe nods. Don't forget the importance of life and treat the fox as a friend and a new member of the family. The baby makes funny sounds, so they're going to name him Kiki. Caring is the most important thing in the world. Changing the subject, the blonde points to a nearby cage, which looks rather strange. She doesn't understand what it is. This is a dragon prison. Legend has it that a dragon lived on the mountain many years ago, but according to the tale, the forces that attacked the country were punished. Everyone paid for their crimes, right there in this prison. Chloe reminds everyone not to go there. Little ones love to get into trouble, but that's not the way to go. Once inside, it's impossible to leave the cage without the dragon's permission. The doors are open, but then they won't open again. Rara walks forward, reaching out to the bars, which are right next to her. Ricardo grabs the boy by the arms just in time. The family starts asking if he's okay, but the prison just seems familiar. The feeling of closeness does not leave the young guy, but he has already been scolded for the way he behaves and where he gets involved. Kiki was also afraid of prison, so the lady was determined never to enter it. Soon she would have to disobey the prohibitions. The night, as usual, brought with it a multitude of thoughts. The lady can't believe that tomorrow marks the anniversary of Frayne's death. The girl doesn't even know where the body is, so, thinking that her mother knows, she goes to her office, asking permission to enter. Stopping right in front of the desk, the beauty fidgets. Noticing the trouble, Chloe offers her some milk to calm her down. The girl added a little honey, thereby making the drink much tastier and more soothing than it was before. Gathering her strength, the lady asks what happened to her birth mother's body. She remains worried. The Benedito family made sure of that. There are many oddities in Frayne's accusation, as she was punished far too harshly for a princess of the Oswald Empire. The blonde froze in horror. She hadn't known about such details, all the while thinking there was no point in delving deeper. The maiden tries to calm down, asking why the princess received such a cruel punishment and why no one helped her. Daphne herself couldn't do anything because of her age, but the adults could. Oswald is in the midst of a civil war. Ever since Frayne's imprisonment, the girls' brothers had been waging a war for the throne, and it had been a rather bloody battle to the death. The crime must be serious, because in the original, people hated her so much that they even killed her daughter. The girl really doesn't understand what the princess did to the people from the slums that made them so angry with her. It all happened 8 years ago, when people started disappearing. It seemed that Frayne was sacrificing them for the sake of Hronis's cursed wife. She'd been following the Duke all this time, and everyone assumed she was blinded by jealousy. This can't be. The little girl still remembers the hands that held her tenderly. The woman was locked in the tower, calling for her husband all the time. There are indeed many oddities in this case. Chloe doesn't believe it's all true, so she conducts her own investigation. There wasn't enough evidence during the trial, but the verdict was handed down anyway. It seemed the judges were trying to finish the case quickly. Frayne's death is just a piece of the puzzle for the couple's happy ending. If not for Julius, the Empire might have helped her avoid such a painful death. Benedito hugs the crying girl. She promises to make her as happy as her own mother and to do everything possible. All the details of the investigation will soon be revealed. The girl had never heard of infidelity, so this also surprises her. Axelius enters the room. He was obviously standing outside the door, discussing with Chloe his meeting with Simon at the temple, asking if they had talked about Frayne. He wants to discuss everything later, but the blonde man is starting to piece together the puzzle in his head. That's why they didn't tell him who the baby's father was. She is Frayne's daughter. The boy's face seems frozen in hatred or disappointment. So Daphne hurries to her room. It seems the man is angry or disappointed with Benedito. The relationship will never be the same, and this won't fix anything. Entering the room, the young lady notices Kiki at her feet. He woke up by pure chance, but he's very helpful. The girl is glad he's there. Before going to bed, the woman decided to stop by Rara's. He certainly knows how to cheer you up, so she knocked on the door, observing his sleepy expression. Daphne began to cry uncontrollably. Perhaps she had simply had a terrible nightmare, but the young man promised to dispel all doubts. There's pitch darkness all around, overwhelming the senses, but the boy shines so brightly, illuminating the path out to the light. He will always be there, just like the fox. The blonde starts crying again. He can't believe Chloe dared to lie, saying it was her daughter and not the villain who was in the tower. The heroine sees no problem. This isn't her biological child, but she's still considered a daughter because everyone's already gotten used to her. Axelius doesn't understand how he can be so untrustworthy. Perhaps it's because he's a member of the imperial family. Chaynard has always been proud of his noble origins, but in front of this woman, he feels terribly ashamed. Axel doesn't want to force his love into anything, but simply wants to receive honesty that goes both ways. Beginning her story, the woman mentioned that the little girl had found her herself. The beatings at the orphanage were too much afterward, and she was simply thrown out into the slums. Those around her could not leave the baby alone, and that is why she lived in terrible conditions that are not suitable for a child. Daphne injured her leg while fulfilling a request with a flower and almost died, but said that was not the worst thing. The innocent child begged for help. She was simply trying to escape death. And if Daphne had revealed her secret, her life would have become much more complicated. The woman knows that Axel can be trusted, but because of what was happening, she was very worried and could not tell the truth. The girl has another nightmare. It's as if someone is catching up with her, and at the last moment, she wakes up with a start. It was just a dream, because falling into someone's hands isn't so scary there. The fox cub was also a little scared by the way his mistress was acting. Rara was sleeping nearby but never woke up. Lennox, checking on him, said the boy had a high fever. The young man regrets that he won't be able to go to the performance. He also wanted to see Simon, but now that's not going to happen. Virgo doesn't know how she can leave completely alone, but she has been waiting for this performance for a very long time, so she can't refuse. Extending his hand to his friend, the brunette promises that everything will be fine, hoping that his friends will have fun even without him. The little one was also looking forward to going to the city, but he still thought about Benedito. She'd be back at the estate very soon. Silence fell over the carriage as they drove to their destination. They had always chatted amiably before, but that would no longer be the case. Starting the conversation, the girl says she didn't mean to lie. Her mother isn't to blame either, because the heroine asked to come over to her house. The girl speaks as if she's done something bad. A sinner's child is innocent because he builds his own life. The lady still believes nothing has changed since she remains the villain's daughter. Everyone should hate her and wish her the worst. Jumping up, the blonde man asks again, but the little girl cringes. She thought she was about to be hit. It's a habit he picked up from the orphanage, and it's embarrassing. The boy didn't mean to do anything bad and will keep the secret to the last. Half an hour later, the carriage arrived at the Empire. The girl quickly jumped out to see Simon. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, but Ragnar still hadn't arrived. He had a high fever, but it looked like a common cold that would pass soon. This simple conversation helped calm her down. The lady is happy to have friends and hopes this will never end. Upon entering the theater, the Duke notices the paladins gathered in one spot. He needs to sort this out, but leaving the children alone isn't the best solution. When the man finally leaves, the young man asks about their argument. It's impossible to tell him all the details, so the girl simply smiles. The performance begins. In a certain country, there lived a man and a woman who loved each other. Their meeting was fate, bringing the lovers together. When they wanted to confess, the jealous woman began to interfere with their love. She used all sorts of curses to separate the couple. While pursuing the couple, she killed many people, but the criminal was soon put behind bars. The inseparable lovers overcame all adversity and lived happily ever after. This story of a villain who received her punishment and a rewarded bride who earned her place was repulsive. Clemens agrees with the story's unpleasantness, but also notices the state of Daphne, who has her head down. Duke Hieronymus returned just in time. He noticed His Highness, delighted that he too had come to see the performance. The man notices a young lady behind him. She's shy, so they'll meet some other time. No one will recognize her surely, since so much time has passed. Euless runs out from behind the stage, saying he's nervous. Darling runs off rather quickly, without even explaining where he's going. The woman notices the young prince and immediately understands the reason for his quick departure. The brunette is pleased to meet you. She is the Duke's wife and is also a much more polite person than her husband. This woman is the main character. It was because of her that Frayne died, because she was the one who fell in love with the man and took him away. Maria, who had obviously been there the whole time, rushes towards them. She absolutely loved the performance they were watching. Simon hears that the performance was put on by the Hieronymus family. It's dubious entertainment, worthless. People shouldn't forget such a story, but the young man doesn't think so. No one has the right to reveal a family's private life. Maria tries to resist. The performance was staged especially for her mother, since her father fell in love with her at first sight. The girl felt as if someone had doused her with cold water. She didn't know that the Duke had fallen in love with his wife first, forgetting about Frayne. The boy asks if the man has children from a previous marriage. There was a girl at the orphanage, but she was the villain's daughter, not his. The hero forgot who he was originally married to. That child died in an orphanage, and if she had been sent back to her mother's homeland, this would not have happened. It's sad that a 7-year-old child died in a fire, even though he didn't deserve it. Julius gapes in surprise, unable to understand anything. The warehouses suddenly burned down, and only one child died. The lady quietly asks her father what would have happened if that man had still been alive. If the child is still alive, then it's a shame. She deserves not to be among normal people. Better to die young than to bear the sins of your parents your entire life. This expression seems absurd, especially coming from Hieronymus. Daphne jumps up and runs from the hall. She doesn't understand why she hated only Julissa when it was the Duke who drove her mother to death. Running out onto the road, the little girl trips. She falls to the ground with a crash and only then notices the galloping horses. The prince noticed that his friend seemed out of sorts. Her relationship with the Grand Duke had suddenly changed, and she sat sadly throughout the entire performance. The brunette merely snorted, ignoring the girl's departure. "A well-behaved child," he said, "wouldn't behave like that." Frowning, the man advises against letting someone who is not up to par with you get close, so as not to regret it in the future. The young man is capable of figuring things out on his own. If the other person wants to turn his daughter into a princess, there's no point in making such nasty suggestions. Without another word, the hero grabs his wife and daughter and leaves the room. He looks insulted and humiliated. Watching them leave, the prince wonders how they could be so shameless. They should have thought before they acted. The young man goes outside to look for Daphne. He doesn't know where she could have disappeared to so suddenly. A crowd of people attracts attention. A Grand Duke lies on the road, shielding a little girl with his body, thereby saving her. The heroine still can't comprehend that she almost died. She's terrified to imagine what could have happened if all this had been true. The girl realizes the book is trying to reconstruct the plot. That evening, the cheerful Rara also fell ill, which became a sign. The play was directed by Duke Hieronymus and was about Frayne, who had long been imprisoned inside the castle tower. The girl tried to escape and was almost run over by a cart. The realization of what could have happened is downright terrifying. Death is still near, no matter how hard the heroine tries to avoid it. She understands that nothing is right, so she can't answer Simon. If the friend knew the little girl was the villain's daughter, it would likely drive them apart. It's scary to admit what's true. Things couldn't have been worse this whole time. The lady pretended everything was fine, but in reality, it was anything but. The one who became her light was Ragnar, who was left all alone. She misses him, even though she only saw him recently. After a while, the lady opened her eyes. She hadn't even realized how she'd gotten home. But her mother's voice brought her back to her senses. The doctor said the girl was unharmed, but the truth is, she's still worried. The heroine asks where Sherbold is. Ragnar is resting in a separate room. The blonde doesn't want to stop because she urgently needs to see the one she misses. The room is empty. The lady doesn't know where the boy has gone since he promised to wait where he was when she left for the festival. The girl notices her friend in the corner. He looks at her with pitiful eyes, but then orders Daphne to run while she still has a chance. It's all too strange to fully comprehend, but within seconds, the guy is already rushing forward with a knife, still begging to run away. Rika, who had noticed everything happening, ran into the room just in time. He threw the boy back with a magic circle. The blonde fears there's no escape. She realizes she's still trapped inside a story that's trying to change everything. Ragnar wanted to kill his friend. Perhaps Freyne truly was a terrible sinner. Or perhaps she was made that way for the sake of heroes. If this is true, then Daphne too must become a sacrifice for the sake of the happy future of others in this story. Tears stream down her cheeks, but the lady still refuses to give in. She remembers the promise she made when she left the shelter. The lady will definitely change the original plot. She is obliged to make everyone around her happy. Lennox and Ricardo discuss what happened to their mother. She says her daughter is still sleeping, but Ragnar, on the contrary, is worried. The magic wore off, but now, as if everything had returned to normal. This puzzle drives the young man crazy. Rara can't trust himself because he's afraid of hurting someone. He decided to lock himself in a cage. It's all because of the heroine's greed. She tried to cling to the man who should have been in charge, and now fate has punished her for it. Leaving the estate, the girl sits Kiki down on the ground, asking him to take her to the cage where her friend is sitting. We need to fix what happened before it's too late. The boy blames himself, but he doesn't really understand that it's not his fault. Noticing Daphne, the young man almost immediately begins apologizing. He didn't mean to ruin anything or attack. Forcing Ragnar to listen attentively, the maiden reveals that she has known their future for a long time and what it should be. She knows for certain that she won't die and will live happily ever after. These words serve more as a consolation. Daphne was once very afraid of death, so she ran away to the place where she definitely had the right to survive. In the future, the young man will become the heir and will also become close to another girl and live with her in marriage. She knows all this in detail. It sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly the plot of one of the books. It's not a true story, so Sherbold doesn't immediately believe it. The girl had been running from death for a long time, thinking it was all over. But now it's clear that if you want to change the future, you have to change everything. If the lady stays with her friend, he will definitely try to kill her. The guy doesn't understand how his friend could talk about something like that in her right mind and doesn't believe that they are in a book. The boy screams desperately. He doesn't intend to kill Benedito because he considers her someone important. Ragnar has every right to be offended by the words that will be spoken, but in reality, they are not destined to be together. Rara still tries to say something, but the girl interrupts him. The fatigue from screaming is growing, and she just wants to live. I want to escape the worry of when she'll die. To do that, I need to change the merciless fate that's holding me back. In this case, the brunette is obliged to close the cage. This is the only thing he can do to disappear once and for all. Benedito shouldn't cry over trifles. It's hard for a boy to see the tears of someone he cares about more than himself. The cage closes. Unsure of what to do next, the girl rushes to call for help. The girl woke up the next morning with her mother asleep next to her. She doesn't remember how she ended up in bed. I remember how she spoke to Rara when they went into the forest. After that, all memories are swallowed by a fog that prevents me from remembering anything. Horror overwhelms her, so the little girl jumps out of bed. They urgently need to do something to get to the young man. Helping the girl dress, the woman promises that everything will be fine. They can go together with Lennox to get into the forest. There was no cage in the forest, only a trail of blood in that very spot. It was as if Lady had killed her friend in order to survive herself. If the girl hadn't tried to change her fate at all, everything would have been fine. Now, however, it's unclear where the young man has disappeared to. Chloe understands that Ragnar did the wrong thing. If only he had seen Daphne when she was sobbing in the forest, he would have understood everything without question. The woman wanted the boy to have good memories, but for some reason, things turned out differently. It didn't work out, and now it's someone else's problem. Axelius knows his daughter is in trouble. He still doesn't know how he can help, so he seems helpless even in this small matter. Turning to Chloe, the young man asks if everything is okay if the girl is not with her now and left her completely alone in the room. The blonde knows her daughter is asleep and she needs to finish her work before she wakes up. She'll take care of the rest of the important paperwork later. Winter should be less of a hassle, but the problem here is something entirely different. The family has decided to leave the Clemens Empire. The girl was ill for a long time and only got back on her feet a week later. She doesn't know why this happened to Ragnar and not her. Upon seeing her mother, the little girl immediately hugs her. She sincerely apologizes for all the wrong things she's done. The girl will still remain the heir, and there's no point in saying she's stupid. One mistake doesn't mean anything at all. Smiling, the mother asks the little girl if she'd like to visit outside the empire. A trip would help her unwind. The girl is unhappy being in one place. And even more so, such a large guild cannot remain in one place. They can explore the continent as a family to figure out what they need most. It might be considered an escape, but it's still important. Mom doesn't get a precise answer, and instead she's asked about what they talked about that very night in the office. Numerous corpses were found in the basement of Duke Hieronymus' estate, but no one attempted to cast a curse. There was no evidence of Freyne's guilt, and the servants were unable to provide any definitive information. The trial will end suspiciously quickly. This is still in doubt, given the man's treachery. If the criminal had been the girl's father, he would have been able to defend himself and avoid receiving such punishment, and then death. With such power, the man did nothing, even if he no longer loved the villain. That's because he himself invented the accusations. Chloe apologizes for not being able to research the case a little better to understand exactly what to do next. It was as if someone was deliberately obstructing the investigation, trying to lead it astray. Perhaps the original is trying to return everything to its original state. If, by the will of the book, the villainous mother died, it will be difficult to escape the fate written on paper. One can only hope that everything can be fixed. Freyne's name will be cleared, and she herself will live happily ever after. There's a long way to go. Now the girl will no longer fear death. Ragnar is dead, and things can't get any worse. Because everything will only get better from here. Now the lady intends not only to survive, but also to protect everyone else. Previously, her goals were somewhat different. That's why the woman must become stronger and overcome everything. She suggests that Chloe go to Oswald. Simon received the news almost immediately the next day. He couldn't believe Rara was gone just like that. Daphne, in turn, cannot meet the guy because she and her family are leaving the Empire for another country. Turning to the Duke, the young man tries to extract the truth. His expression makes it clear he's known everything all along. Dressing quickly, the boy tries to escape quickly to visit the girl before it's too late. The family left the Empire that evening. Axelius went to Benedito's estate immediately after receiving the letter, but in the end, nothing worked because no one was there. Something happened that day, but what exactly is unclear. The boy's eye color and pupils were always like that because of an illness, but perhaps there was something else going on. If such a sudden death was caused by illness, then it is sad. But for some reason, the family hastily packed their things, refusing a funeral. Something is definitely wrong, but Chaynard has no right to tell someone else's secret, which they are already trying with all their might to keep so that everything will end. The young man recalls what happened the day before. His friend had a strange reaction to a play about a villain. Everything became even more terrifying when Hieronymus arrived. The girl seemed either frightened of him or tried her best to escape. It's hard to believe Daphne isn't the guildmaster's biological daughter. Amber eyes are common among nobles, but only the Duke possesses such a color. Realizing the answer was just around the corner, the young man asked when the orphanage burned down. It happened sometime last winter. If that child did survive, it means that the blonde is Frayn's biological daughter, who died in the tower. Upon learning this, the man could have kicked them out, but that wouldn't have been true. He was stunned, but didn't think to do anything outrageous. Benedito wanted to leave quietly, so as not to disturb His Highness. Everything was known in advance, but nothing was said. The young man lowers his head, almost in tears. He should have protected his girlfriend if he couldn't protect his friend. This sunny child made the prince a full-fledged man, less afraid of the world. Now everything became clear, but the girl had already left. Duke Hronis has arrived at the palace for the engagement. The prince goes ahead to avoid suspicion. The guy has to protect his girlfriend, among other things, so he sits silently, thinking about what he needs to do. After a pause, the young man says that he wants to cancel his engagement to Maria. Mom doesn't understand what the problem is. This family is quite important in aristocratic society and won't be a mere burden in the royal palace. If you want gold, you should only look for the most glittering. The boy speaks as if he knows another golden-eyed girl. Compared to Maria, this person is better. In fact, they can't even be compared, because her eyes shine brighter than anyone else's. The Duke jumps up from his seat, starting to shout. It's impossible that this could be true, as they're clearly trying to insult him. After such words, the family no longer wants to associate with the prince. They will never be seen on the castle's doorstep again, and that's for the best. A smile appeared on the young man's face almost immediately. With Sherbold no longer alive, Benedito himself would be the one to protect the future emperor. A dragon of enormous size takes to the skies. He noticed something had happened and heard a strange noise, so he immediately became wary. The young man snorts as he transforms into a human. It's hard to believe there are still people left who want to hunt dragons. A cage appeared in the forest, seemingly transported from some distant empire. A man lies inside. This is a baby dragon in human form. It lies unconscious or simply sleeps. It appears the baby has entered the second stage of awakening. The man examines the body from all sides to make sure. Dragons are almost all extinct, but somehow this one survived. He promises to save the young man while it's still possible. The brunette remembers coughing and seeing blood. At that moment, his eyes open and a bright light hits his face, forcing him to squint. The man clearly remembers being in a dragon's cage, but now somehow he finds himself lying in a soft bed in a strange house. The blue-haired man smiles. He thought it would take another 5 years to awaken, but in the end, it all happened quite quickly. An argument ensues. The boy, unaware of his race, doesn't understand what they're talking about. He's not a dragon. It's obvious the hero hasn't realized it yet, but he's not actually human. It's an illusion worth maintaining. Dragons are a great race, superior to humans in every way, and he belongs to them. This is not nonsense or fiction. There's no point in denying it. His eyes are the best proof, with pupils like a reptile's. The young man doesn't know his age and seems to have grown too slowly. Usually dragons grow immediately after waking up, and before that the boy had not even been sick, but then his temperature rose. Everything described is a symptom of awakening, which is the most obvious of all the others. Ragnar has also noticeably changed. He jumps out of bed and runs to the mirror, where he is overcome with horror at the sight he sees. The young man slept for only 3 years. Although he appears mature, he is still a child who needs to be guided to the right path. It is not clear why the man is helping, but according to him, this is just an old man having fun before his death. The young man promises to teach her how to be a dragon and how to want for nothing. From now on, he's a mentor, and though it will take time, it will be worth it. The boy immediately refuses. He needs to find Daphne, who gave him the desire to live. He wants to be with her forever. The mentor had already heard of a union between a dragon and a human, but humans were given a shorter lifespan, so a seal was created. It allows life to be divided between the two. Interest sparks in the brunette's eyes. He wants to know more, so he asks how to create this seal himself. If a man tells you everything right away, it won't be interesting. It's best to start with the basics first, and then you can move up a notch. Sherbold nods. He'll do what he promised, thereby helping his friend survive. Daphne's future seems too bleak, but if she tries, it can be changed, at least in this way. 2 years passed, dragging on rather slowly. The family now spent much of their time outside the Clemens Empire. The girl felt unwell, but now everything is fine because she was so looking forward to this trip. Now she is 13 years old. They arrived in the port city of Jaxed. The air around them was pleasant and salty. You wanted to breathe it day and night for the rest of your life. The sea is nearby, so they urgently need shelter from the wind. Ricardo puts a cloak on his sister, thereby saving her and Kiki, who is hiding in the hood. Mom went to sort out the luggage. She asked the family to meet her in the living room as soon as they arrived. The hotel is expensive because it's located on the main road to Oswald. The town is small, but there are a lot of people, so everything is luxurious. Ricardo switches from admiring the buildings to noting that this city has a coliseum. They have to visit it. The guys promise to tell them everything along the way. The girl is on the mend, but it's best to try to be careful. This arrangement doesn't suit the beauty. She thinks she feels great and therefore refuses to compromise. Rika promised to tell him more, but he simply ran away because Chloe needed help. Only the fox remained. 5 years have passed since the family began traveling beyond the Clemens Empire. Each time, it was incredibly interesting. As soon as the lady first agreed to the trip, Mom shifted all responsibilities to Salvador, who did not expect such a turn of events. The Benedito family set out on a journey across the mainland. Then they crossed the ocean and are now heading to Oswald. The brothers are perfecting their alchemy, while the girls haven't even considered returning home for 5 years. In various empires, Chloe dealt with food supply issues, while the maiden visited temples to heal her leg. Now, everything will be fine. At first, the lady was afraid that she would never recover, but in the end, this turned out to be completely untrue. Simon should be okay too. The girl left silently, but years later, he still continues to pass letters through the guild. The heroine isn't ready to read the messages. She'd like to apologize someday, but for now, this is the best option. The girl hopes it won't be too late. Her leg has healed so well that she should prepare for the second part of the original. With a romance threatening to kill Daphne, she promised herself to develop powers to protect everyone around her. While the lady retains her memories, something must be done. The information must be used wisely. In the second part, Maria and her brother travel to Oswald to investigate the dungeons. It was there that the girl revealed her identity and entered the academy. Before the Empire, the city they stopped in was mentioned. The lady doesn't remember what exactly happened. Shouts are heard from the Colosseum. The formation seems somehow familiar, and the lady remembers that a knight has been with Heronis the whole time. The brunette saved a child in the Colosseum, and the man swore to be her knight. Now her memories are being restored. The blonde only remembers that it was a girl 3 or 4 years older. That's enough to find her. If Daphne befriends the right person first, her chances will increase significantly. That's exactly what's needed. The main goal is to make connections and develop skills, as well as go to Oswald, where the required academy is located. The adventure begins with the rescue of a local knight who remained in the Colosseum, where the heroine ended up with her brother. The little girl doesn't want to hear or see all this horror. If the right person hadn't been there, she would never have come. The first fight begins. The announcer announces it, and 2 men with some kind of weapon come out onto the stage. The girl is prepared, but everything that's happening seems too cruel. People are dying one after another, and pops are hurt all around. I had to endure it, but it looks like everything is too complicated, so the lady will return empty-handed. Another couple takes the stage. I think I still need to see the last fight. The girl with red hair looks quite familiar. The fight will be between the fallen aristocrat Fleur and the axe-wielding man Logan. The axe is clearly stronger than the sword, and if you look from the stands, the warrior is clearly not in the best position because he can easily die. Obviously, people wouldn't come if the fights were boring. All they can do is keep quiet and watch from afar. Fleur deftly dodges to do the right thing. The man, on the other hand, falls to the ground with a crash. Even Rika was interested in what was happening. Diva was fighting without even using a weapon, as it served no purpose for her. After the tournament ended, Daphne went to see her deputy. Fleur was a combat slave, so she needed to get her master's permission first. Ricardo heard that ordinary mercenaries were involved. The war brought in combat slaves, but they were useless because all they knew was how to fight. Such people are killed when they become useless. Everyone wants to live, but no one asks about it anymore. The girl's employer is away on business, but they can make things easier. The young man is clearly hinting that he wants some money. Approaching one of the cages where the fighters are held, the man calls out to Fleur. She has visitors, so she shouldn't hide in a dark corner. A red-haired girl steps into the light. She asks in surprise who it could be, peering through the bars ahead. The little girl wanted to talk, so she asked for a meeting. She was rudely refused because they didn't even know each other. The woman doesn't like it here, but she's in this cage against her will. She was an aristocrat, but she lost all her wealth. The entire family was executed for their hatred of the imperial family, and the head of the Colosseum bought Fleur on the condition that she serve as a slave. She cost a lot, but everyone is willing to pay for the chance to see something. The heroine wishes to take the night with her. She will likely have to pay at least 100,000 gold pieces. Rika asks about the main one because she's ready to pay, but the voice from the cage asks her not to. She doesn't need anything. Upon arriving home, Daphne remained sulky. Lennox merely inquired, only to discover that the little girl hadn't gotten what she wanted. The girl found what she was looking for, but the man didn't want to go anywhere with her. The fallen aristocrat is the best in the Colosseum. If the maiden is so badly needed, she can ask the Merchant Guild for help. But the blonde understands that Fleur must go of her own free will. The woman has been through hardship, but no one wants her to suffer even more. Tomorrow will be attempt number 2. The heroine isn't sure everything will be all right, but she's confident she can convince. The gift of persuasion has always been there. In the original, Maria destroys the Colosseum and saves Fleur. It was said that the girl wanted to escape, but now she hears a refusal. The heroine tries to understand what's happening, but it doesn't make any sense. Most likely, there's a hidden reason. Tomorrow, the girl promises to go herself and even get permission from Chloe. She'll take Kiki with her, who will help if anything happens. Ricardo takes a small box out of his pocket. He hands over the gift, although he had actually intended to do so much later. This is a magical item created by combining the brothers' abilities. They look like ordinary earrings, but they can be used to contact Lennox. If anything happens, my sister can call for help. Most likely, nothing will happen, but it's worth saving just in case. The next morning, the Colosseum was once again crowded. The lady was always amazed that so many people enjoyed watching the battles. There had to be a serious reason why the girl decided to stay there. She couldn't just say it out of the blue. Another fighter steps forward. He hadn't been seen the day before, but now he appears before the others, all dressed in black. The fight begins, and this time it is Fleur who comes out, who always seems to be the last opponent. The attack begins almost immediately after the two stop glaring at each other. One of the swords flies at the announcer. It's a draw, which doesn't bode well for Fleur this time. Daphne's eyes met those of the mysterious man. That same evening, the blonde returned to the corridor with the cages. This was to meet her friend and try to persuade her. The woman seems worried she didn't come out on top this time. She must defend her title, or something terrible will happen. This time, the woman approached the question a little differently. She noticed that almost all the opponents used weapons, but the red-haired one tried not to. She doesn't like blood spatter. It only gets in the way and then stains her clothes. If she goes with Daphne, she won't see anything like that again. Benedito nods, but reminds her that she is one of those stubborn people who always achieves everything. So she has no right to fall behind. The girl leaves, but ponders why it's so important to maintain her title as the strongest. The guy took it seriously. The warrior from the Colosseum appears in the way. He stops, but then simply walks forward calmly, saying that nothing is needed. Kiki hides his head. He must have had a nightmare, or the man in black must have really scared the little boy. Fleur's adversary called Daphne himself, but said nothing. Perhaps he's trying to convey a hidden message. After many days, nothing happened. Redhead refused again and again, asking how long this could go on. Handing over a chocolate bar, the lady asks if her new friend would like to eat it. She seems completely uninterested in hearing anything. The girl doesn't understand what they want from her. If they want to buy her so easily, it would be better to make a deal with the boss at the Colosseum. Worries about the slave's opinion should be dispelled. It seems as if this is truly important to the maiden, which is why she doesn't give up. The heroine refuses to act against Fleur's will. This is unacceptable, so she must consent. Once upon a time, those who suffered defeat were killed, and that is why the maiden refuses to strike with a sword so as not to end lives. Daphne had heard that the red-haired woman was a knight, and noble people like her did not tolerate senseless killings. The knight raises his sword to defend his master. Now the lady thinks she's being mocked because of her birth. In reality, the blonde simply likes Fleur's personality. If she agrees to go with her, she'll be promised something. Virgo will not have to fight in senseless battles. And she, like a knight, will raise her weapon only to defend her master. The woman couldn't protect anyone, neither the kingdom nor her family, but in this case, she could protect her new mistress. The heroine offers to go with her. The girl should think it over. The gentleman will return in a week, and then everything can be discussed in more detail. On the street, the young woman encounters the same fighter again. Kiki overreacts again, charging straight at him. The man says everything is fine, even if the fox is quite stubborn and jumps into his arms. He offers to walk the lady home. They went to the hotel where Benedito was staying. She was embarrassed that everything had turned out this way since she had raised the fox cub on her own. The couple finally reached the tall building. The blonde climbed into the baby's arms, saying she'd thank him later. One of the servants asks why some insolent man with a suspicious mask is pursuing the heiress of a merchant guild. He was simply escorting her home. The brunette heard that Benedito was staying at the estate, and apparently the little heir was standing in front of him. As a token of gratitude, the lady can recommend the man to the guild leader, who is willing to help with security. The little girl hasn't even seen her friend's face, so she can't do anything. He quickly removes his mask, asking if it will be better. The face is very reminiscent of Ragnar, who has been dead for a long time. The eyes are different, but overall the features are somewhat similar. The young man says his name is Nas, and he's 17, the same age as Fleur. She had hopes, but nothing came of it because he's not Sherbold. He's a freelance mercenary with good skills. The girl saw him at a tournament, but then she wanted to become a security guard. It's difficult for a mercenary without a master to get into Oswald. The heroine nods, promising to do everything in her power. Chloe steps outside, spotting her daughter. She wanted to introduce them, so she introduces the guild leader and this man. The young man immediately said something in farewell and left. Even Benedito noticed that he resembled Rara. It is impossible for a dead person to appear before a living person in such a way as if nothing had happened. The red-haired woman promised to think about it, but for now, the lady has the right to stroll around the square of Jackside where they were staying. Sitting at the table, the heroine notices Nas again. He seems to be stalking her, hoping to convey something to her. It's a small world, but one wonders what a man is doing there. It's worth approaching him or asking directly, but finding the strength is hard. Kiki was acting strangely, so it's understandable he wouldn't approach someone he didn't know. Approaching, the lady hands him a mug as a thank you for yesterday. They switch to the informal you. Daphne has repaid the kindness, so she has every right to do so. She introduces herself. The young man takes a sip and blinks in surprise. It's a chocolate drink, and Benedito brought it for a reason. The child shouldn't wander around the city all alone. The knight promises to accompany his friend. Nas did it to protect the little girl. Rumors had already spread about what was happening in the Colosseum. A small child came every day, offering to let the best fighter leave with her. Turning around, the beauty notices a strange hooded man. He is still standing in the same place, motionless. Rara is no longer alive, and the lady is still trying to cling to a foolish hope and does not notice anything around her. Daphne was escorted to the hotel. She asks us not to wander around the city alone, and as a token of gratitude, we can do so. The lady needs a new plan. Approaching the woman, the girl hands over the food she'd bought specifically for her. The redhead has decided to stay there, so nothing will work out. She starts screaming about how fed up she is and begging him not to come again. The blonde nods. She understands that tomorrow will be the last time and that she will simply give up. Fleur sat down on the ground. She picked up the food she'd thrown away and heard a question about that girl. No one else would come. The woman should go alone, but she can't. Most likely, it's because the man starts coughing. Xez doesn't have long left, but there's no point in worrying about that because everything will be fine. The day the lady first appeared there, many laughed, but the man immediately realized the aristocrat was a true knight. Without her friend's guidance, the lady would have died long ago. She couldn't just leave her savior in a cage like that. A rough male voice interrupts the conversation. The girl immediately turns, recognizing him as her master. The head of the Colosseum, Emil, smiles, saying it's been a while since they've seen each other. His tone bodes ill for both of them. X's hasn't performed in a while, so he's obliged to take the stage. They agreed that Lady would participate and take his place. But she's not fighting as well as she promised, as her last fight ended in a draw. Many complaints were brought against the beauty. The people were tired, but the knight begged her to fight in single combat, and so did the men. Nothing will come of it, because the young man will fight against his ward. They will go out together and fight until one of them dies. Fleur doesn't want to fight to the death, but the brunette assures her everything will be fine. She still has her whole life ahead of her. If the red-haired woman had told the truth to that girl, perhaps things would have gotten easier. Instead, the lady remained stubborn. She couldn't ask a child to save 2 lives. If there was another chance, the girl would tell everything. At the perfect moment, the blonde appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, asking why her friend was crying. The man from the cage screams for the little girl to free Fleur as soon as possible so that things don't get worse. They seem to be close, but if K.S. asks to pick up her friend, something definitely happened, and it's not good. The blonde asks to tell her what is happening, but she doesn't notice how a man appears behind her, swinging a bat. Her head hurts terribly, and the heroine herself is behind bars. Sometimes courage comes at a high price. The owner of the Colosseum made sure the girl ended up in a cage. Emil emerges from the shadows. He'd heard rumors that someone was trying to take Fleur, and he hadn't expected to see such a young lady. A wonderful commodity has fallen into his hands. The blonde man will sell the girl to some aristocrat at the next auction. Fleur apologizes, saying she should have agreed much earlier. It's too early, though, as she was planning to meet her brothers at 11. The heroine foresaw this outcome, but now they need to quickly get to the exit, which is on the other side. For several days in a row, the blonde was stalked by a strange man, so she said that she would come one last time, thereby provoking action. The redhead scolds her friend for acting so recklessly. She should have thought about what was happening. If the beauty can't give up fighting, then the baby will simply stop everything so that she can leave. The heroine wants to hear the whole story. She'll take them both, and she'll find a good doctor for Zesu who will cure him. First, we need to get out. The lock is secured with a magical key, without which nothing can be opened. A few seconds later, everything opened up. This was done with a magic potion that neutralizes magic. Kiki jumps out first and starts sniffing the ground. He'll lead them all to the Colosseum's exit. At this rate, they might run into security, and that's exactly what happened. Virgo handled it perfectly, using a sleeping spell. This is the first time the lady has used it herself, but it worked perfectly. Now the mercenaries will sleep for a very long time. Lennox's voice is heard through the earring. They've found the door, but they can't open it because the mechanism is in a different place. Ricardo promises to get them out with magic. They must wait a little while before that happens. Frayne is worried. Emil has probably already learned that the couple has escaped and could attack right at the door. The owner indeed appeared in the distance. He was furious because the cage had been opened with some kind of potion. In any case, the shackles will prevent anyone from going any further. They are magical fetters that are only visible when a button is pressed. The blonde man notices his fighters. He thought Daphne was just a sweet child, but it turns out that's not true at all. The girl quickly runs away while she still has a chance to escape. Nas grabs her and pulls her body around the corner. The baby ended up there for her own reasons, but she is grateful that she was saved from what could have happened. There's a bump in her hair from a blow. Most likely, one of the guards injured her while she was escaping. The man seems worried, but that doesn't matter for now. The lady heads out to meet her brothers. It seems that the young man sees the girl as a hamster because he will not allow her to wander around dark places on her own. She's not going to run away because there are people left who need to be saved before it's too late. They need to be okay. Before heading out, the young man suggests going into the owner's office and not leaving empty handed. In the office, the man keeps various magical objects that can also be used to open the shackles on his legs. Dispelling the magical bonds is more difficult than it seems, given the vast amount of items in the office. The search is interrupted by a gruff voice asking who's there. The door abruptly opens. Emil spots the girl, happy that he and the guards will catch her and send her back to the cage. The battle begins, with Nas the first to participate. He manages to land blows one after another and damage the wielder. The ceiling collapses, revealing a huge hole through which two figures can be seen on the roof. These are Daphne's brothers, who arrived just in time. They arrange to meet and realize their sister needed help. Ricardo notices the device with the button on the table. It can remove any shackles, so this is already a plus for rescuing the slaves. Fleur can't be taken away, but the brothers don't think so. The mage causes the button to turn to ash, meaning the shackles are gone. The Tower Master must be able to dispel even the simplest of spells. He raises a multitude of stones around himself. The young man is about to cooperate and hand over the girl, but it's too late. When the bomb planted in the Colosseum explodes, the slaves will scatter on their own. Emil kidnapped Benedito's heiress and wanted to sell her. He simply starts making excuses, even if it makes no sense. The brothers return for Fleur and Zess, but they were found unconscious. The first thing they did was take the victims to the infirmary. The Colosseum's owner was soon arrested. The girl heard that everyone was just waiting for an excuse to lock him up. Everything ended quite well. Even the red-headed one woke up. She was immediately reassured and assured that everything was fine. Xez was in the next room. The couple didn't know if Benedito would return, so they decided to clean up themselves. The girl took the sword the knight had carried into the arena. It must be important. Daphne apologizes for the harm she suffered. Nothing terrible happened because the story ended well for all of them. For that, they have only this kind girl to thank. If the offer still stands, then the lady wishes to become a faithful knight who will protect his mistress from all adversity. The girl didn't think someone like Fleur would swear allegiance. She wasn't even an aristocrat, but that was precisely what she was counting on.